Why? Why are the innocent punished? Why the sacrifice? Why the pain? There aren't any promises, nothing certain. Only that some get called, some get saved. She won't ever know the hardship and grief for those of us left behind. We commit these bodies to the void with a glad heart. For within each seed, there is a promise of a flower. And within each death, no matter how small, there is always a new podcast, a new beginning. Amen.
Sometimes I'll watch the quote as you read it, and I'm kind of like, he's running out of words to throw in podcast.
I know exactly where to put it.
I figured you did.
Yeah.
You're wearing sort of his glasses right now. He's kind of got those Griffey glasses on.
Yeah, Charles S. Dutton in this movie, huge Griffin Newman vibes.
Major Griffey energy.
I just watched it and I went, God, it's so nice to see myself reflected on screen.
He does kind of have a, God, can we just all fucking stop fighting energy sometimes? Which is sort of Griffin.
It would manifest very differently, I think, coming out of me.
Out of you? You don't think people would just like shut up and listen to you?
No.
Immediately?
What undeniable command he has of this room.
A bunch of hardened convicts wouldn't be like, oh, okay.
Yeah. This is like such an astonishing performance from him.
Love him.
Where every time I watch this, I'm just like, this is kind of like one of the great supporting performances, period.
I mean, I feel like you are, okay, so, geez, we need to acknowledge, I need to have some gravitas here because, of course, this is the start of a new mini-series, but of course, we've covered this film.
There's a lot of things to set up
because
here.
we did do alien commentaries in the pandemic.
What even is this, David? What
I know,
is this?
but I just want to say, I just remember your reverence for Dutton then, and it clearly endures now.
Right.
That's all.
At times, I have thought he might be, and this is boiling hot, and I don't know if I stand by this today, but I at least think it's in the conversation. The best performance in any Alien movie.
You think this is the best performance?
I think it's in the conversation.
Think you want to have that conversation? What about Sigourney Weaver?
I was going to say, I think Sigourney Weaver is the best performance
I think
in
this
movie.
I agree that I think you kind of gotta give it to her. But I think if you remove Ripley, if you go non-Ripley performance.
Okay. So sort of like, who's your favorite Simpsons character that's not in the Simpson family?
And a franchise with incredible performances in basically every movie, if we're not counting the V's, if we're counting proper Alien.
Yeah, I mean, I probably have a few people ahead of Dutton, but just it's an excellent performance.
Right. Each of these movies has basically at least 2 slam dunk supporting performances, right?
It's a good showcase for exactly that.
Right. And Resurrection's the weakest of them, and even still, you're like, Perlman's kind of on fire in that movie.
What were you expecting? Santa Claus?
Yeah. Well, the most normal, relaxed.
I don't know if you remember Resurrection.
Know how to speak English.
I haven't seen it in a little while.
Dominique Pignon, who I do believe basically was just phonetically reading a lot of his lines.
Right. Yeah, they put peanut butter in his mouth.
Reading Joss Whedon's, verbose witticisms. At one point says, what were you expecting, Santa Claus? Except he says it, what were you expecting, Santa Claus? Like, he just doesn't know what he's saying.
No idea,
his character's in like a bionic wheelchair, right? And the bit is that there's like a thumping from the other side of the door and everyone's like prepped with their guns and they think the alien's going to come through and the doors open up and they're all like, whoo. And then he says that line, which is supposed to be kind of a Whedon throwaway. And he does say, like, what were you expecting, Santa Claus?
What were you expecting, Santa Claus? Obviously, this is not from the film we're discussing today.
The film
not relevant.
Listen, let me get a bunch of stuff right out of the way. This is Blank Check with Griffin and David. I'm Griffin.
I'm David.
It is a podcast about filmographies. Directors who experience massive success early on in their careers and are given a series of blank checks to make whatever crazy passion projects they want. And sometimes those checks clear and sometimes they bounce. Baby, this is start of a new miniseries. We're covering the films of David Fincher. It is called The Curious Pod of Benjamin Buttcast.
That's right. You're damn right it is.
Curious Pod of Benjamin Buttcast.
There was some initial, the curious pod of Benjamin Caston or something. I don't know.
Look, you could do an obvious, the curious cast.
That was it.
Right. I mean, it's one letter.
Benjamin Podden or whatever.
And you were like, Buttcast.
Buttcast.
And I was like, Buttcast.
Buttcast.
Yes, indeed.
Buttcast.
Yes, welcome to the Curious Pod of Benjamin Buttcast.
Buttcast.
I could say
Who
that.
were you expecting? Benjamin Buttcast?
Benjamin Buttcast! What's that guy doing?
Dominique Pignon? I think he's still
chilling?
in the Jeunet movies that no one watches anymore.
He hasn't done a movie since 2015.
Really?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. That was TV. He does more movies. He's working. Yeah, he's 68 years old.
One of the
but he was certainly in PSAs.
Yes.
That Jeunet movie?
Yes,
Yeah,
and he was in Micmacs. Was he in Micmacs? Was he in Micmac Telago?
Yes, I was in Micmacs. He's done 9 films with Jean-Pierre Jeunet.
Wasn't he in Tell No One?
What word are you saying? What was the word you just said?
He was in some fucking French thriller that had like crossover success here in the States.
Tell No One?
What? That's what I'm questioning. I said,
I'm not seeing Tell No One.
He was in something.
What were you expecting?
What were you expecting?
I love that guy. Do you like that guy?
Tony Pignon?
I know we're here to talk about Fincher and Alien 3, but do you like Jean-Pierre Jeunet's films of the 90s?
Let's slap down a quick 30 minutes on Pignon.
Delicatessen's really good. That holds up. I watched it in the pandemic because I was trying to do like sort of dystopia movies, I think, for some list or whatever. And it's a great dystopia movie. Have
you rewatched Amelie?
You know what? Not in years. That's a movie that has only grown in my mind. I was a cynical teenager about it.
Yes.
When it came out. And I was like, I'm smarter than this movie and I don't need whimsy in my life or whatever. And later I have sort of just been like, well, that movie is beautiful. Like visually. So beautiful.
I'm very curious how it would play for me on rewatch. I was a whimsical teenager who loved it.
How'd you feel about Amelie, Matt? We're going to introduce you, don't worry.
Yeah. Okay. No, it's fine. I should be anonymous the whole time. I don't care.
No. Absolutely not. You're here to
also
promote.
have not seen it in decades,
like
perhaps.
20 years, probably.
It's been a while.
That is a great point, though, David. We have a guest on today who is not part of SAG or WGA, and thus can promote.
He can promote
his upcoming works.
Like
That's
crazy.
Right. That's right.
And I assume you will be promoting like crazy.
Every possible chance.
Introduce our guest.
Our guest, returning to the show, the author of the upcoming Opposable Thumbs.
That's right.
Matt Singer.
He's reaching into his book.
He's reaching into his book. What does he have here? A copy of
very nice looking copy.
This is a video, right? So everyone can see the cover right now. Perfect.
Yes.
I'll leave it right
there. What is the actual release date of Opposable Thumbs?
October 24th.
Okay, so it's out in about a month from now.
Yes.
But you can pre-order it,
Absolutely.
which I know is very crucial to the success of books.
Yeah,
especially mine.
Especially yours?
As far as I'm concerned, it's especially important.
It's most important to pre-order your book.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the message we're getting across here today. So you are here with us, Matt,
to talk about
as we launch the Buttcast.
Yes. The thing we're trying to set up here is new miniseries, Fincher.
David Fincher.
On our
the
Patreon,
filmmaker David Fincher.
Blank Check special features.
Yeah.
We focus on film series and franchises rather than directors.
Yeah.
As our sort of grouping.
The Venn diagrams overlap.
Sometimes we try to pick franchises that maybe don't have one strong auteur throughout all of them, because those are the kinds of things we usually like to keep for main feed. So we did in 2020 a perfect year. One of the all-time best.
A great year with no issues.
Yes. Put it on the Mount Rushmore of
Especially
years.
the later part of the year, which is when we did this.
Right.
Those first 3 months, boring.
Right.
2020, January, February, nothing's going on. Everything seems okay.
Our 3 franchise series were Toy Story, Mission Impossible, and Aliens. And then what did we do after that?
After that, I think we may have done Oh, no, you said Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can look.
Whatever we did after Aliens. I don't know. But like Mission Impossible, Aliens, perfect examples of franchises that have auteurs, but do not have one definitive director.
Friend, we, of course, checked in with our pal, Mr. Crocodile Dundee.
That's what it was.
That
was our normal. Our normal 2020 was Star Wars was the last thing we recorded pre-lockdown, and then we did Toy Story, Mission Impossible, Alien, Croc Dundee. Right.
All the greats.
Yeah, exactly. The big 4.
The ones that loom largest in my mind, personally.
Hunt, Alien, Crocodile Dundee.
Yeah.
And Mission Impossible and Alien, in both of those series, we had to cover a movie we had already covered on main feed. We did a second go-round on Ghost Protocol by Brad Bird and Aliens by Cameron. And we said, well, should we not do this because of Fincher maybe someday? And what we said on mic, I don't know if you remember this,
I do remember this. Remember it very
well, if we ever do Alien 3... we'll talk about the assembly cut.
We'll watch the original cut because it's the more widely accessible.
Yes.
But then when we do the real episode, we can obviously delve into the assembly cut.
So is that what you watched?
Yep.
Matt?
I watched both.
I
You
rewatched
watched
both.
Cool.
Like a good guest.
Like a great guest. Yes.
I have seen the original cut many times. Maybe not like dozens, but like several times. So I'm pretty versed in it.
Yeah.
And I'd only seen the assembly cut, I think, once before.
Yeah.
Because I watched it when I bought the correctly and logically named Quadrilogy box set.
A thing we've talked about many times ruined our generation's brains forever. It implanted a word that does not exist.
It face hugged onto a generation.
It did.
Forcibly implanted a nonsensical word.
Right. And it's just like you can kind of tell it's a good way to identify like-minded people. If someone else says quadrilogy, you're like, you were really into physical media in 2003, weren't you?
You're right. I say that word.
Of course. Of course.
Quadrilogy.
You're a like-minded person. It's almost the handshake.
It is. It's like a secret code.
What do you call 4 stories?
Obviously a quadrilogy.
And you're like, and you had the box set, and did you watch it with mother mode on, or did you?
God, back in the day where they were like, your DVDs should be hard for you to watch.
Should be work.
Because I saw you posting about the Memento DVD,
Yes.
which is the first thing I ever bought on Amazon in my entire life.
Wow.
The special edition Memento DVD where you had to go like man, film, play, God, you know, you have to like go through these notes.
You literally had to print out the instructions and like keep them with the DVD. Otherwise, it was a useless disc.
So irritating.
Cool. Yeah, cool.
Did you have that thing? And it also, if there's a secret way to watch the movie in correct order, quote unquote,
I was
chronological
right.
order.
I was less of a Memento guy than you were. I now am tempted to buy that DVD just as almost an artifact to like play the game of it.
You know? You can. You'll have minutes of fun.
I have Memento on Blu-ray if I want to watch the movie, but it's the same way like Panic Room, which is famously not on Blu-ray, and we'll talk about when we get to that episode.
Sure.
I tracked down and rebought the old 3-disc edition of that is the most comprehensive special feature package for any movie ever. It was just peak DVD Fincher being like, every single second of this will be documented.
Absolutely.
I tried to watch this movie this morning. I think I made a tactical error. I watched the movie.
Okay, good.
I think the mistake was I went like, let's go full bore everything, right? Let me activate like basically everything
always do.
This Blu-ray could do for me at once. So I did the assembly cut. I put on subtitles for the commentary track.
Okay.
So I was listening to the movies.
It's not Fincher? Because he didn't want to be involved.
He has nothing to do with any of those features.
He's very scarred by Alien 3.
Right. And then there's a commentary track that feels like, I can't tell if they're all in the same room or it's editing between a couple commentary tracks, but it's like Dickie Edlin from Boss Film. It's the cinematographer, it's the editor who put together the assembly cuts.
I listened to it at one point, and I'm pretty sure it's separate audios blended together.
That they mushed together.
Yes.
So I was like watching the movie, reading the transcript of their commentary.
Seems a little sensory overload.
And then I put mother mode on.
What
exactly
is
as Fincher intended is what you're saying.
It's like muth.r mode or something. And it is like, it puts like a weird Weyland-Yutani grid around the film in which it basically does pop-up video.
Why would you need it? You don't need it. You already know all this
cuts away to little featurettes, but also gives you like pop-up like trivia track shit.
So you made it about 10 minutes in 2 hours.
I felt like I was to invoke the recently released Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning when Gabriel goes into like the entity tank.
Yeah, he's in the coffin of information.
Right.
Yes.
Whereas like so much is being thrown at me, I can't process any of it.
You emerge and you're like, there is only one movie, Alien 3. I have not seen any other movies.
Right. But I have always unabashedly loved this movie.
Sure. Okay.
I think the assembly cut is better while not being perfect. I think it falls a little bit into
our
that.
Our guest might disagree, which I'm very intrigued by. I saw him floating that idea on Letterboxd.
I kind of do disagree.
Interesting.
But we can talk about it.
We can.
Talk about it.
Yeah. I mean,
and our feelings on this film.
Here's my take I came around to watching it this time. Because I had always just been like, well, obviously assembly cut is better, right? This time I viewed it more like Zach, the Snyder cut. Where I was like, this is interesting to sort of watch laid out all the pieces of the intention.
Right.
It doesn't totally function as a movie. Alien 3, for its like sort of muddled form, is more properly.
It's a blockbuster
like
film about an alien in a prison,
right? And partially because like Fincher had no oversight over the assembly cut. It was just a team a decade later trying to like put together something closer to his first assembly, which is would not have been his finished film, was just what he presented to the studio before they pushed back on him. It's just kind of like cracking open the notebook, and seeing like, here are all the alternate versions of the scenes. Here's how it was originally assembled if you just put everything in order from top to bottom.
See, and that's why I kind of think that the theatrical cut is better. It's because it does feel like a rough cut to me. And it does
Absolutely.
It does improve certain things, but I think it weakens other things and creates other problems that were the theatrical cut has problems.
Yeah.
The assembly cut solves some of those problems while creating other problems of its own.
I almost want a Blade Runner style final cut thing where it's like, now we need a third cut that meets in the middle between
it's
the
like
two.
Fincher's
He doesn't want to do
cut
it.
it out.
Right.
Stop even telling me about Alien 3.
Right.
Whereas Ridley Scott is like, I have one more idea. Like, let me just like...
Fincher's meanwhile going like, Zaslav, over here.
What's more final than final? The ultimate or something like that.
Blade Runner and Alexander, there's a couple movies like this where you're like, I don't even know which one is supposed to be the last
Final
by
cut.
the name.
Right, because Final Cut in Alexander was the third, and then he did a fourth cut after
he's
that.
done like
Yeah,
8 cuts
I
of
think
that
the
movie.
ultimate comes after the final.
And the second one was revisited.
Yes, I believe that's correct, but it is one of the most confusing.
Theatrical revisited final ultimate.
And people will, because they know I like that film a lot, and I do. I think that film's excellent. And they'll tweet at me like, which Alexander cut should I walk into? I'm like, I don't know, man.
Just lay them out on a table. Like dump all the pieces out like a fucking puzzle. I was doing this bit before we recorded, but my new thing is Zaslav reforming him, using it as a verb, but also reforming him into kind of like a Grim Reaper of all media, even the things that aren't like, Time Warner.
It's just gone.
Right. And sometimes it can almost be like a philanthropic act. Sometimes it's like Fincher being like, please put this movie out of its misery. And Zaslav just comes in with his scythe.
Alien 3 doesn't need to go anywhere.
No.
Look, I want to talk about Fincher, obviously, but there's just there's one thing in the assembly cut that I cannot believe is not in the theatrical cut, and it almost justifies the whole thing to me, which is those early shots on the surface with her body, which are so cool and evocative. And I'm like, why would you cut this? This is so good.
It's all that production design of that.
Exactly.
The exterior is incredible, and it's in the theatrical cut for like 20 seconds, 30 seconds.
What's wild about that, too, is like when I think of Alien 3, just in abstract as a movie, the first image I think of is Charles Dance on the beach in that opening.
Which is, and it's so cool that we don't really ever go back there. And you're like, God, this is like the weirdest situation.
But it's like, it's such evocative, mood-setting stuff. It sets such a better pace for the movie. I think most of the improvements of the assembly cut are in the first
sure. It's more in the back half where you're kind of like, this is kind of taking a while. Right. But we can talk about it, obviously. Ben, I assume you watched the regular cut?
Yeah. I didn't need more time with this movie.
No. But I mean, this movie is very you in a way. It's got a bit of a Benny aesthetic. It's got the industrial sort of, early 90s, 9 Inch Nails-y vibe.
Yeah, aggressive dude vibe.
Right. There's some chains.
Oh, tons
this
of
movie
chains.
Has tons of chains.
Liquid metal.
I will say this. I could have used more dripping in general.
At the end, there's waterfalls of
every time the
steel.
alien is in close-up.
Yeah, he drippy.
I
it's
need
so
dripping like every 10 seconds.
Okay. Can I actually ask a question about that?
Yeah.
Obviously, the alien bleeds blood if you cut it or whatever. But you know how the alien is constantly like producing moisture, like in that iconic shot, just dripping with water.
Always slimy.
Our wettest monster.
Is that slime? Is that water? Is that sweat? Like what is that?
Sweat.
I was really wondering because like it's really coming off that face.
It's
that
incredible
maw.
to see it just gooing off.
Right.
Yeah. I think
how does it stay hydrated?
Do they drink? Well, they kind of suck up your.
They drink Pepsi. They
guts.
chase
and of
kids
course, there's
in
a
an
great
alleyway.
commercial we all just watched in which the alien sucks down a Pepsi.
Incredible 1991. That's the other thing I was seeing from the AVP Wikia. That commercial came out a full year before this movie came out.
Right.
So it was less of a direct tie-in and more of, we have this suit we just built for the movie.
Right.
And it was also part of another thing we'll talk about, that like around this movie, there was this aborted push for like, do we turn Alien into like a kid's franchise?
Right.
That they were planning to, around the release of this film, come out with a cartoon show. There was a toy line, new video games, all that didn't have that much to do with Alien 3 specifically. But they were like, can we make Alien into just a thing this peak era of like R-rated franchises being like toned down for children.
Could this be the choice of a new generation?
Could it?
And then they were like, yes, it can.
Yes.
In this ad for Pepsi.
The Pepsi commercial is great.
You,
Now
you have to watch it.
Did you like Alien as a kid? Because again, that would have been pitched at a Ben type.
I did. I have my toy from growing up right here.
Ben-
My Alien
Bren
and
bought
my Predator.
his Alien and his Predator Kenner figures.
I know you're a Predator fan.
over
obviously.
here.
Yeah.
And he said, he brought them to me and he said, these are like the only toys from my childhood I've kept.
That's true.
That is
Yeah.
fascinating.
Wow.
All right.
Yeah.
I love though H.R. Geiger's
Yes, sure.
aesthetic
Yeah.
for sure. Grew up loving these movies.
His
big time.
early funny work in particular, I think.
The
with
comedies.
Geiger. The early funny ones.
Yeah.
Oh my god, yeah, absolutely.
Um,
Funny guy.
H.R.
Funny guy.
Geiger's
Funny
Bananas.
light. Yeah.
He is
Feather-light touch.
he is kind of fun. There's the quadrilogy, if you will, the
Of
box
course.
set, the
Absolutely.
anthology, whatever
Yeah.
you want to call the box set, has like an incredible making of documentary about each movie, but the one
Yeah.
about Alien 3 is really awesome and has a lot of Giger talking in it about his design for this movie, which they actually didn't seemingly use a lot of.
He gave them a lot of stuff. I think they kind
They
of ignored.
mostly just
Yeah.
discarded.
Yeah.
But him talking about it is incredible. And
There-
if for his
Does he
his
talk
quote-unquote
like
fun-
this? Or
Yeah.
whatever? Does
Yeah.
he have a fun accent?
And he's talking about the erotical things
Yeah.
within it, and it's if you enjoy the comedies of his early works, it's actually pretty
There's the
fun.
rod puppet that they call the Bambi Burster that plays more in the assembly cut. That is like the most juvenile version of the runner Alien. And that was apparently the main thing that
gave
he had an
them.
influence on that actually ended up in the film.
Right.
Now, Ben, before we dig into this, just because you were asking, David, whether or not Ben is a fan of Alien 3, of course, one would think, well, this is Ben's second time talking about Alien 3 on mic. If I am not misremembering, was
You're
that not
about to
the episode?
misremember.
Was it
Yeah,
Resurrection?
it's
Resurrection is when Ben fully took
Fell
a
asleep.
nap.
Was
It
asleep
was
the
late.
entire time.
To be fair, it was late at night.
Right.
It was in the middle of the pandemic.
That's
Yeah.
a very
Trump had
nappable
just-
movie, though.
As we've discussed,
I agree.
it's not the most arresting movie
No.
ever made. And Trump had just been diagnosed with the novel coronavirus.
Right.
One of the wilder things to happen.
And so we were all drinking for
Right.
unrelated reasons.
And
Yeah.
I got diagnosed with the bit of a sleepy boy.
yes.
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 But right,
yeah,
the
nappy
right.
nap.
Yeah. If a doctor had come, he would have been like, this is a
Right, that was
tie-tie
the other
boy.
thing.
Right
He
here.
had just been
Yes.
diagnosed, and we were like, all we want to do is talk about this. And by the time these episodes come out, who
It'll
knows?
be resolved.
Right,
In
and
whatever
any
way.
it will
Right.
be too weird. So we were like, all had this manic energy of trying not to talk about it. And Ben was like, and we're on like little Zoom boxes, and Ben starts lying down on his couch, hugging his cat. Right? And he's just sort of like looking adorable, and we're like making jokes about how adorable he looks. And then like 10 minutes in, he stops responding to the jokes, and we realize he is fully asleep, and just one of our Zoom windows is just Ben sleeping. We're just watching
Nap
him
boy.
sleep.
2020.
But he was like grin, like ear to ear grin. He looked so peaceful.
Aw,
I mean,
that's
it
nice.
really did gently just put me right to sleep.
Yeah.
Dan Hedaya getting like,
Yeah.
you know, his throat
Dreams
snapped
of
or whatever.
Santa Claus.
In all the Alien movies, there's a lot of dream and sleep imagery.
True.
Every, you know, the first one, the second one, this one, they all begin with people asleep.
Every movie
Very
begins
true.
and ends
Very
with a little nap
nightmarish.
time. Yeah.
Yes. Well, this one ends with
The ultimate nap.
I suppose. Yeah. Well, this one has the ending of a lot of my dreams, which is you're falling to your
Right.
death.
Right.
You know,
Into
so, which
a
is
pit of
incredibly
lava.
dreamlike
Right.
as well. So,
True.
so I think it's very justifiable on those grounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were just going along with the dreamlike vibe.
And she is dead.
She is dead.
Like, that's the end of Ripley.
Yeah.
As much as she was quote unquote resurrected, obviously it's a different character
Yes.
explicitly.
Right. That's
And then
Ripley
that's it.
8 or whatever.
And I
Yeah.
was reading about resurrection
Yeah.
on the Xenopedia.
Yeah.
And it did point out, like, as much as there is tons of alien stuff that's happened since, nothing has actually been set after this.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, no one's ever actually figured
Yeah.
out what happened after
Yeah.
that.
It's interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
Even though it has like an explicit cliffhanger, basically, of like,
Right.
you know, they're near Earth and all this.
Right. I think before like Prometheus formed, there was a moment where it felt like Ridley was considering doing a thing with Sigourney.
Right.
When he was sort of like, I'd like to go back
Yeah.
to Alien
Yeah, he
before he
was,
landed
right.
on the more prequel-y thing. And then obviously Neil Blomkamp was going to do his thing, but his thing was going to be ignoring this.
Right.
Which would
This
have been annoying.
Remains the
I'm
dead
very
end.
glad they didn't do that.
Yeah, in a fascinating way. It's like
Neil
one of the things.
Blomkamp, famously normal and chill, by the way.
Yes,
I've heard that.
Yeah.
We've all heard
Yes.
that. Mm-hmm.
But it's one.
I'm not
of the
accusing
things...
him of anything criminal, by the way, with that vague thing. Just that he can be a bit nervy. I've heard, especially if you bring up, hey, you used to be like super successful and you're going to make an Alien movie, and now it seems like you're not really going on for you.
There was a moment where I was with Alex Ross Perry, our friend, who will never be on this show again, and he. Someone else we were with made a joke about someone else being on the verge of getting canceled.
Right.
And everyone went like deadly silent, and he went like, sorry, I was joking. And Alex just very wisely said, there is literally no one you could say that about who we wouldn't take it seriously.
Right. At this point, you're just like, okay,
there's no
what do
comical
they do?
name you could throw out where we just go like impossible.
Santa Claus?
And likewise, anytime you say normal and chill about anyone, well, who'd you expect?
I mean, the man abuses his power day and night.
Yeah.
These elves working
breaking
for him.
and entering every
That's
house.
true.
Come on.
He's basically a peeping Tom.
Yeah.
This guy makes $254 million a year. He works one day. His salary is higher than any CEO other than Zaslav.
Who puts him on the list?
Well, that's the question.
Right, exactly. Who watches The Watchmen?
No, Blomkamp's just a weird guy, self-destructive career.
A little weird. Anyway.
But yes, it is the thing I will forever love this movie for, where like watching Dial of Destiny.
Yeah.
I was just like, why don't we let character stories end?
Sure.
And that movie is
Why don't we let
Ford
that be
trying
that?
to come back and be like, I want to put a period at the end of this.
Right.
But I'm like, but it's still just...
There is something to that in this movie, in Alien 3.
Yeah.
Because, you could tell, it feels like, and when you watch, again, like the supplemental materials, it's like, well, Fox really wanted another Alien movie. And the people who made it are like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And that energy is really like infused into the movie in a way that's like really, like in a twisted way.
Right.
Paradoxical way is really fun.
Again?
Everyone, like, it's just, like this movie reminds me, there's a favorite George Costanza quote of mine from the episode The Masseuse, where Jerry is dating. No, well, that's a great quote too.
That's the episode where it moves, right?
Okay,
yes.
It does.
That sounds right.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the quote I have in mind in this case, I'm trying to think how it moved could be in conjunction with Alien 3. I mean, I guess it does move. I mean,
I
it's
was
inside.
just
I don't know.
remembering him saying it moved.
Is Jerry is dating the masseuse. She hates George, and George finds himself inexplicably drawn to that. And at one point he says, this woman hates me so much, I'm starting to like her.
Yeah.
And that is how I feel about Alien 3. This movie, like, it's just like...
It's so mad at you.
It's exuding antipathy and hatred and just mean and nasty and surly. And it kills the protagonist.
Yeah.
It says, we're never making another one of these stupid movies. Stop asking us for them. It's over.
Right.
And that energy, like... I'm a sucker for
Same.
for the same, exactly the reason you're saying. Like, every sequel exists to propagate more sequels.
Yes.
You know? And this
Especially
movie,
now. Like, they have to play very safe
they
getting
have
out
to
of
play
any
it
movie.
safe.
Right.
We've got to please, and Alien in its own way, and especially Aliens, are such crowd pleasers.
Yes.
Right.
This movie is by design a crowd displeaser.
Yes.
It wants you to be it's desperately trying to piss you off in every way.
And not only is it like, does it have that contempt for like the studio system, right? Basically, like Weyland-Yutani Corp.
Well, that's the other part that's
like,
amazing.
Is Fox being like, please, you have to keep doing this, right?
You don't understand. This alien thing is so important to us. It's so
And
valuable.
It has contempt for like the
It's
studio
like, no.
and for the audience. But then also when you remove the meta layer just inside the movie itself, it's basically like, and we all agree that humanity is terrible.
Yes.
Just by and large.
There's no hope.
No.
There's no joy.
No.
There's nothing. It's just misery.
Matt, you're roughly my age. So you probably did not see Alien 3 in theaters in 1992.
I would have needed an adult supervisor,
yes.
and I did not.
I would love to know someone who is sort of from the generation above me, because it must have been so... I cannot dispute how crushing it must have felt, especially back in the day of knowing a lot less about these movies when you're walking into them.
Right.
To walk into this movie being like, I was 14 years old when I saw Aliens, or whatever, right? I was like a teen. I cannot wait for this movie. And the way this movie begins with like, sit down, start crying. Like, nothing good is going to happen. Your friends are dead.
Right. It's well, in a way, it's almost more painful to watch now, I feel like, because in the quadrilogy context of where
Say
you
it
can,
as many times as
I'm
we
going
can.
to keep
Yeah,
doing it because you
please.
brought it up.
Yeah.
It's like, because today you can watch, which I did, you could like watch them all in one night or one night after another. Like you watch Aliens and that has this ending of, you know, this new family that has been created.
They're all going to bed
and then
together.
you, okay, take that disc out. I'm going to put in Alien 3 and see what happens. Oh, wait, they're all dead. You know,
Yes.
like Ripley
Horribly
survives, but
dead.
horribly killed in the worst possible ways.
I do think there's that thing. You talk to most film nerds who are a couple of years older than us, starting at like maybe like 4 or 5 years older than us. And this is still like the shorthand movie for the most disrespectful thing you can do to its characters, right?
This is what they're still afraid of.
Right.
Like now.
Right.
Yeah, can you imagine this movie coming out today? The
No.
reaction,
Right.
what it
But
would
I
be
feel like
online.
But
I
it
will
would never
still
make it anywhere
No.
in the studio
Right,
system.
right.
They'd be like, no, you're not doing that.
I will
Fuck
still
off.
see people say, like, I heard rumors that they're thinking of pulling an Aliens 3 at the beginning of this movie, right? Like, I'll see people still use it as the warning sign of the thing not to do. And people talk about it as if it's like almost a traumatic incident of like, how could a studio fuck up what we liked this much?
Right.
And we talked about this in our commentary episodes, but like, I watched the first Alien and the first Predator, rented both on VHS from the video store across the street in the same night, and was like, holy fucking shit. And then watched every Friday for the next 3 weeks, would rent the next Alien movie. So I'm just like watching this in a compressed month cycle where part of what I'm into is like, and what, you're telling me they're all different?
Right.
So when
It's
Alien
part of
3
the
starts,
appeal.
I'm like, yeah, that's how these movies work.
Sure.
I felt
Right.
it was like later that I found out, oh, people hate this. They hate the vibe of it. They hate that they killed off the characters.
I
They hate
think
that it's its own thing.
If Newt wasn't involved, I feel like the audience revulsion would have been a lot. As much as we all like Michael Bihn's pretty face, and Hicks is very charming.
Sure.
If there was some sort of way for them to have been like, Newt got ejected onto a happy colony,
Yes.
Right.
and she's
Right.
fine.
Yeah.
And you know, who knows what happened to Hicks and Ripley's stuck here now. I honestly feel like people were just like, you killed off maybe the best child character in the history of genre film.
Right. A thing that people usually hate.
We all hate that kind of a character.
Right,
Newt
yeah.
is the one we let into our hearts. And then you begin the movie like drowned horribly. Charles Dance is like, yeah, I don't know. She's fucking dead though. I'll tell you that much.
Well,
dead.
Also, when you, again, go back and look at Aliens and you look at all the things this character survived.
It's
Yes.
true.
And you've
right.
watched her go through this incredible ordeal,
Then you're like, oh,
and then you watch
malfunction.
Ripley go down into, like she gets kidnapped again, and she has to go down to the Queen and rescue her again, and you're like,
Imagine
wow.
the groans in the audience.
Right.
As like the credits play and it's like, there's a fucking alien on the ship. Yeah.
Right.
it's, you know,
And
they're
also,
dead, they're dead.
as you said, David, like at the time this movie's coming out, people know less about movies going
Right.
into them. Even if you're someone who reads fucking Starlog magazine and whatever,
Right.
you're still not going like, well, Ripley and Newt aren't in the trailer, so it definitely means they die in the opening credits.
Right.
There's not the same like ecosystem of dialogue. I think a lot of people show up and are like, I'm curious to see what they do with Ripley and Newt.
I feel like the big thing that, because I do remember this movie coming out, and I
Yeah.
feel like the big thing that you remember from I remember from the marketing was just Sigourney Weaver cut off her hair. Like that
Right.
was the
That
whole
was
marketing.
huge.
That was like a
Fucking-
huge
Apart
thing.
from that, they were like 3 times the thrill. Like they really
Right,
hit
yes.
the 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cubed thrills.
Yes.
But there wasn't, they didn't really dwell on what even the movie was like
The bitch
about
is
or
back.
anything. It's
That
just
was
like
their other
it's
thing.
Right.
like
Bitch is back is
Sigourney
a good
Weaver looks
tagline.
Yeah.
wild and awesome in
Right.
this,
Which she
and we
does.
got more aliens. Which she does, and,
Right.
and we got more aliens,
And she
that was
got-
it. That was the whole idea.
Right, she got a big salary on this. I feel like that was another big thing of like she's kind of breaking new like pay ceilings for women in film.
Yeah.
I think Resurrection even was up from.
Yeah, she
this.
made.
Oh, I'm sure.
I believe she made more on Resurrection than like the budget of Alien or something. There's some like
Right.
stat like
Wow.
that that's very fun.
But like this was 10,
She
and that
made a lot
was
of money.
like 16 or
Yeah,
something like
because-
that. Right.
she's quite important.
Yes.
Obviously, and we can talk about the development of this movie. But there was a time when Fox was like developing 2 follow-ups.
Yeah.
And one was she was gonna be in the second. Was the idea
Interesting.
that she would not, that Hicks would be the lead of the first movie, Michael
Okay.
Biehn.
Is this the Gibson thing?
This is pre-Gibson, I
Okay.
think. But Gibson is
Was
sort of
this
working.
Walter Hill and
Well,
his partner?
Yeah, I guess yes. It's Walter Hill and
Yeah.
David Geiler, who's the longtime producer of these movies. Right, here's the idea.
They were
like,
basically the
Hicks would
creators
be the
of this
protagonist
franchise.
of
Yeah.
Alien 3.
Yeah.
And Ripley would barely appear, and then in the 4th she would return, and there would be like a big epic battle of fucking aliens.
Right, that's the
or
other thing.
whatever,
I think even if you're someone watching these trailers and you're like, huh, Hex and Newt aren't in them, right? And you're
Right.
aware of the fact that like Newt was played by a child, and like what 7 years have passed.
Right. She may not want
Right.
to.
Cryosleep is not going to be able to work with this premise or whatever.
Right.
You still might be like, oh, part of the premise is there was a ship crash and Ripley is landed somewhere different than them. You don't necessarily think like 15 minutes into the movie, you're going to see Newt's chest cracked open.
Right.
Lying on a slab.
Ooh.
We need to get into Fincher background, but just another thing to pin here in terms of like killing Newt as a character and that being a thing that people were really devastated by. I do think it's interesting that Aliens is obviously like thought of as such a big like seminal work of motherhood, right?
Right.
Yes.
In science fiction and genre film, like really one of the best encapsulations of that. She makes that movie. She doesn't have any children. I was when in mother mode, too much information being thrown at me. They kept on talking about they made the dummy that Charles Dance carries from the beach, and when they made it,
all covered in goo and worms.
Yes, when they made the dummy, Sigourney was like 8 months pregnant.
Oh shit! Sure. Okay.
And so they didn't scan her, but they took measurements, they took pictures, and she was just like, just focus on my head and my shoulders, and I assure you that I will be this lean by the time we start filming.
Right.
Which was like 6 months later. So she's making this movie 6 months after having her first child. And there was something to, whereas the last movie would be the movie that most actors would be like, well, I was really able to tap into something, draw upon as a new mother, these feelings I was feeling. Instead, she now has a kid for the first time, and the movie is like, my child is dead. Was the child yours? No, I'm not her mother.
Right. But she plays those scenes amazing. She's great in those scenes.
Totally.
Though.
But I think it's like, it speaks to her daring as an actor that she's sort of like, I now want to do the thought experiment of the worst thing I could possibly imagine happening and make the movie that's going into like the darkest part of my psyche now that I kind of know what it would feel like to lose a child.
It feels like every time she was lobbed a bleak take, she was not resistant to it. Her one thing was that the movie not have guns.
Yes.
As we've discussed and we can discuss again.
Yeah.
But apart from that, I don't think she was really like Newt, obviously. Like, we need Newt or we need X or whatever. Like that.
Ben.
Griff, what's up?
Everyone knows one thing about me.
That you're handsome?
Come on.
Okay, sorry.
No, I'm saying what's the number one thing that comes to mind when people think of me?
You're super chill?
Yes, but let's sort of riff on that. Let's extend on that.
Okay. You love outdoor activities.
I'm the undisputed king of summer.
Yeah.
I mean, these are all elements of it. Obviously, handsome, chill, love the outdoors.
Sure.
Summer is my prime season.
Currently wearing a tank top
Shorts,
shorts, flip-flops.
All clothes I feel comfortable wearing.
A snorkel, too.
Absolutely. I feel very comfortable showing those parts of my body. I'm not someone who wears long-sleeve shirts and
not a
jeans.
tan line to be seen.
No. It's the best. Look, summer's the best. There's something fun going on pretty much every weekend. Things that I love personally.
Okay.
Like barbecues.
Oh, yeah.
Pool parties.
Yup.
This is an organic read. This is just me telling you some things I love. Family vacation. I love spending time with my entire family.
Yeah.
I definitely don't feel like the opposite of Dom Toretto and that the more family members around me, the weaker I get. I love camping trips.
You're a big camping guy.
I love pitching a tent.
Yep.
That's so weird. Wait, I'm looking at this ad copy and all these things are also listed here. That's weird. Anyway, for all of those occasions, the number one thing I want to make sure of is that I got some great wine at the ready.
Absolutely.
Now, some people might say, oh, Griffin, you're drinking wine because these activities are torturous to you and you're looking for your own enjoyment off to the side. No, I like all those other activities and I like wine on top of that. And that's why summer is actually the perfect time to join the First Leaf Wine Club. Now, I love First Leaf because they make it super easy to get personalized wine boxes delivered on my schedule. Since you get to choose the day your shipment comes, you can go out, have all your summer fun without stressing about missing delivery. 6 days of beach, 1 day of wine delivery is how I organize my week.
Can you, pick out a selection of rosés, some white wine, some chilled reds?
To get started with First Leaf, all you have to do is answer some quick questions about your likes and dislikes on the website. And their expert team will select a customized assortment of world-class wines based on your preferences. Personally, I want all the rosés and the white wines in the summer. That's how I feel. I also like them in the winter.
Yep. And do you like a crisp white? Some minerality?
See, Ben, this is the thing. I sometimes lack the language to describe what I want. They make it very easy with their quiz. Sure. I'm not a wine expert. I walk into the store, I feel like a dummy.
You're not like one of those guys who are like notes of forest floor.
No.
Barnyard.
Right.
Vibes.
I'd say I'd rather it not come packaged in cardboard. That's usually the only guidance I have. But they got everything. They got terrific reds and sparkling wines. And your personalized wine shipments are delivered right to your door so you can kick back, enjoy bottles you'll love all summer long. Sun's out, guns out, glass full of rosé, all priced lower than you'd pay at a wine store. Plus, every selection is backed by First Leaf's 100% satisfaction guarantee.
And you mean your biceps are out?
Yes, my rippling biceps. I'm sweating a normal amount.
Your biceps?
My biceps. My biceps are out and they are not sweaty. I sweat a normal amount. I don't weirdly sweat as much as Meatloaf. I work well in the summer. It doesn't stress me out. When I walked in here today to record these ads, I definitely didn't say to you, God, I hate the summer.
Nope.
Listen, to make sure you've got great wine when you want it this summer, you got to try First Leaf. You just head over to tryfirstleaf.com/check to sign up, and you'll get your first 6 hand-curated bottles for just $44.95. It's hard to make the 6.
That's right.
It's tough to make the 6.
Yeah.
But with First Leaf, the first 6 only cost $44.95. You go to tryfirstleaf.com/check. That's tryfirstleaf.com/check to get your first 6 bottles for under $8 a bottle. Tryfirstleaf.com/check. Summer.
Surf's up.
All right. But David Fincher, how do you feel about David Fincher, Matt? You think he's overrated? Real dingbat, kind of crappy filmmaker.
Yeah. Dingbat.
Didn't
that was the word.
much.
You hit the word I was thinking of. No, I mean, amazing director.
But his movies look like shit, right?
Yeah,
You think he's a fucking...
And it
put
seems
any
like, and the vibe I
efforts.
get from them too, I'm glad you bring that up. They just feel very slapdash,
Hack.
put together.
He's a
like
hack.
one-take wonders, kind
Right.
of. Like, we got it, we moving on. Like, that's how I feel about a lot of them.
Total Eastwood style. I also feel like notoriously just kind of like asleep in Video Village, like doesn't really care about anything happening.
Right.
Lets people like run their own devices.
I mean, there's a couple of fun Fincher elements to this, but part of what is really fun about it is that, at this time, obviously, first feature and he's what, like 27 or some.
He is 27
absurdly
years old.
young age when they hire. Yeah, very upsetting.
Yeah.
When they hire him.
Yeah.
And they basically, I think again, I'm going to keep referring to the that making of documentary.
Mm-hmm.
Someone on there. One on the production side says they like, or maybe multiple people, like they're like, well, he was a really good shooter.
Yeah.
They think of him as this guy who, obviously, based on his music videos and everything he's done, he's an incredible visual stylist.
Yeah.
But they just thought, well, because he's going to be grateful to be here.
Yeah.
Right.
He's going to be
do what
happy
he's
to have this
told,
huge
and he'll
job.
make it look nice.
He's going to be the good shooter, and he's going to shoot what we tell him, and he's going to, just go along with us.
Right.
And that is not what he did.
No. And we'll talk more about the development of this film, but it is that classic studio thing of like, we'll hire the director last.
Right.
That'll be easy.
Right.
Which is insane.
Yes.
But
Yes.
Right. They're like, nah, well, we have to hack everything else together first.
Was established as a very director-driven franchise.
Well, indeed.
Yes.
And remains so in its way.
Yeah.
Obviously, AVP or whatever. Even W.S. Anderson is an auteur in his right and all that. David Fincher, born Denver, Colorado, 1962. Did you know that?
No, that's not where he grows up.
No, he grew up in Marin County, California.
It's a couple doors down from our old friend Georgie Porgy.
The legend is he grew up down the street, 2 driveways down from George Lucas. Now, George Lucas is obviously probably 20 years older than David Fincher, right?
Yeah, but they were like buddies. They'd play like stickball together and shit.
George Lucas, wow, I nailed it. 19 years older than David Fincher.
Hey.
So yes, Marin County as when he was a child, was haunted by the Zodiac Killer. Just a little
never come up again,
right? Thing to note.
Yep.
His dad worked in. It will come up a lot. Obviously, worked as a journalist for Life magazine.
Yes.
Did a lot of freelance magazine stuff. Sort of a science writer mainly, I think,
Primarily.
but was very big movie buff. Took him to all the movies.
His
Mom worked in mental health.
Yes,
like
and substance abuse,
Yeah.
right? Like, sort of sounds more like she was in Not a therapist.
I'm not sure exactly what her job was, but she worked in substance, abuse programs. But yeah, she took him to see all the movies. Fincher was very good at drawing from a very young age.
Yes, but also in a very Finchery way, frustrated that he was not perfect at drawing.
Sure.
He'd look at his drawings, people would go, "You're good," and he'd be like, "It's all wrong."
I think this is a quote that our researcher has dug up where he's like, someday, I used to always go, someday you'll have the skill to draw exactly what you see in your head. You'll be able to show it to someone, and if they like it, then you'll be able to transfer this thing through this apparatus, putting in my head to this.
Communication of ideas.
And it does feel like that. It comes up with Fincher a lot where he's like, I know exactly how this is supposed to look. I just need you people to understand what's in my head.
Yes.
And his team, who are mostly very loyal to him, that they're like, we understand. This is our job, is to sort of like translate.
Look, filmmakers like this, filmmakers like Wes Anderson, like Spielberg and whatever, a lot of their strength comes once they've made a couple films and they've established their good team, and the team basically knows how to finish their sentences. Where they can just start going like, I know what his tastes are. I know what he's going to want.
Right. His editor, I've interviewed. All the people who worked on Mank. I've talked about it before. I'm sure I'll talk about it again.
Mank!
His editor, Mank. Mank. Remember Mank? Mank. And remember, his editor is like, I am his therapist. Like, that's my job, is to be showing him dailies, being like, see, what you're doing makes sense.
Good.
Yeah.
And Fincher would be like, yes. Or to be like, no. Like, or like, we have to change things. Or whatever. But usually it's like, I'm trying to anticipate his anxiety by being like, this is going to look good.
Yep.
The film that inspired young Fincher most, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, or more accurately, a televised making of documentary about the movie, which blew his mind because he had not put together, like many children don't put together, that movies are not made in real time.
Yes.
The movies are complex.
JJ did not include this in his research, but a movie
he's fired.
He is fired. He's double fired. A movie I've heard him talk about a lot, which at first I found very surprising, and now I think is kind of key. And I think even maybe when Benjamin Butt was coming out, and he curated a series, Benjamin Buttcast, when he curated a series of his influences at MoMA, he cites Mary Poppins as like a humongous movie for him.
That's cool.
And I think a lot of it was the technical trickery,
complexity.
Right.
to create something that feels very natural and lived in. Not that it's a natural movie, but I think like a lot of that movie is magic kind of tossed off. And the full creation of a world.
Now, there's a Ben Hosley moment here. When he was 9 years old, he asked his mother for a BB gun. And she said, no, I'm not going to get you a BB gun. What else might you want? And he said, fine, I'll accept a movie camera. Now, he says this was sort of a trick he was playing because a movie camera costs like 10 times as much as fucking
that
BB gun.
Really smart.
And they were like, all right.
Yeah.
And they, he starts making little movies, which he says were quote unquote insane. He says his mother was often extremely disturbed by the movies he would make. Moves to Oregon when he's 14, works as a projectionist. I mean, all of this is just such classic, like early young director stuff, right?
Yeah.
Gets a camera, makes little movies, becomes a projectionist. He went to something called the Berkeley Film Institute. I don't know if that still exists. If you guys have ever heard of it, as a teenager to learn how to make movies. He got in touch with someone at Corti Films.
Okay.
Do you know what this is, Griffin?
No.
Which was an animation studio.
Okay.
And his first screen credit for quote-unquote special photographic effects came on their animated film Twice Upon a Time.
Oh, yes. Which was a Lucasfilm production.
Obviously up there in the North California, that's Lucasfilm territory, right?
Yeah, I love that movie.
And so then he pivots from that to ILM.
Yes.
His dream landing spot ever since he met George Lucas when he was 10 years old, and he works famously on Return of the Jedi.
He's assistant cameraman on that. He does matte photography on Temple of Doom. He works on Neverending Story.
Correct.
Credited as Dave Fincher.
Dave Fincher.
Little Dave Fincher.
Good old Dave.
Yeah.
But I think then he's basically at ILM sort of at the end of that early golden era. Because it's the mid-'80s. People like Phil Tippett and Joe Johnston are moving on. Star Wars is done. For now.
Sure.
So he is getting bored. And he does a famed advertisement, which Marie actually just sent us in text messages, but I knew it. And I assume you may have seen it, in which a fetus is smoking a cigarette in utero as an anti-cancer ad.
I can remember it from childhood, yeah.
And that kick-started his music video career. Which, Rick Springfield. Look, we're going to talk about his music videos.
We can do a
We're gonna
Patreon
do an episode on that.
Yep.
How do you feel about his music videos, if any at all, any way at all? Obviously, very formative time for music videos in general, late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the wrong kind of dork for that.
Fair enough.
I would not be
Fair
a good
enough.
guest on that one, but I mean, I was watching some of them last night, kind of trying to put myself in the headspace of this is the guy who then went on to make Alien 3, and I mean, visually, maybe there's a quality. I guess a lot of them are black and white. A lot of the best ones are black and white.
Yeah, like the Madonna videos.
Yeah, so
Billy Idol.
they have a lot more like. Although actually, one of the Madonna videos has a very fun bit with like she's standing behind. I think they're like screens.
Mm-hmm.
And it reminded me of one of the most famous moments in Alien 3 with Charles Dance's death scene, where in the infirmary, which has all these shower curtain-y kind of things, and you see like the alien, the silhouette
emerging,
and all of that,
which is a great scene.
Yes.
But it is
Music
fascinating.
videos.
I think he has not wanted to go back and talk about his music video work. He famously refused to be included in the director's label
video,
series and
right.
all that shit.
Right.
Come on, Finchy.
He would have been perfect, which he's like made for. He would have had like the best one.
And I do think there's a Mandela effect thing of people thinking I own that DVD, which they
Right.
didn't.
Right.
Chris Cunningham, who had one, worked on
Love
this
him.
film.
Mm-hmm. Chris Cunningham rules.
Along with Steve Norrington. A lot of guys who later go on to become directors were in the effects team on this movie.
Chris Cunningham, again, maybe the most Ben director, because he did those like Aphex Twin videos,
Right. Oh,
like
fuck
Window
yeah.
Liquor
Yeah.
and Come
Yeah,
to
yeah,
Daddy
yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff. He did the Bjork robot video.
Yeah, but he built a lot of the puppets and models for this movie.
That's his
Wow.
primary interest.
And
right?
Norrington, who goes on to direct Blade, was also a big effects guy on
a
this
similarly good director to David Fincher, right? Fincher and Norrington.
Equally great.
But this is the era of these guys getting plucked up, right?
Right,
You do music videos and then you get brought into Hollywood.
The point I was going to make is his movies, or his music videos rather, they have a really strong visual style, but it definitely feels, and this is why I imagine he doesn't really want to reclaim them, he is serving the voice of
the artist.
Yes.
of the record label, of the campaign. He's using them as sort of like technical
a good shooter,
exercise.
you might say.
He's a great shooter. The anti-smoking ad does feel like it has a little bit of the Fincher worldview in it.
Right.
But you watch his best music videos and they're like technical triumphs. Some of them are incredibly good, but they don't feel like they have the worldview that starts immediately in this movie and
Right.
carries through the rest of his filmography.
Right.
A guy where it's like you cannot beat his worldview out of his films. It does not matter what he's working on.
Now, Fincher's hot shit.
Yes.
But he is looking for the right project to start with. This is a very funny quote.
Mm-hmm.
I assume you know which I'm talking about. Apparently, he was pitching Sid Ganis, who's the president of Paramount, on some movie. And he hasn't made a movie yet. And Sid says, Fincher, no one's going to give you $40 million for your first picture. And Fincher said, Sid, I know that. Why would I do a 40-minute movie? Good line. But also,
that's so funny.
indicative of Fincher's, expensive tastes, even before he started making movies.
Yeah. But also, as we'll say many times, his reputation is he doesn't just throw out some willy-nilly number. He doesn't just waste money.
But this is where he learns a lot of these lessons.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
But he
on
just
making
like
this Alien 3.
reads a script and goes, I understand exactly, practically what I would need, what time I would need, what equipment I would need, how much it would
And
cost.
FYI, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Which I love him for.
Right.
God bless you.
And if it's a cent less, I walk off.
Right,
And
right,
that's a lot out of this experience where he thought he could sort of like win the arguments in real time rather than getting the agreement going in.
Over to Alien. So Ridley Scott made a film in 1979 called Alien. Pretty good.
Pretty
Not too shabby.
good movie.
1996, James Cameron makes a sequel. Oh, you can't make a sequel to Alien. What's there to do? Aliens.
Dollar sign.
Dollar sign. Yeah.
I would say also
Big hit.
pretty good.
Not too shabby.
Mwah. So far, high expectations, obviously, in this world.
Especially when Aliens is the thing that on paper people were like, some other fucking guy is coming in and making a sequel
Who does he think he
to
is?
Ridley Scott's movie.
How dare you?
And he's going to sort of do this genre shift. When that works, it's suddenly like, well, now Alien is a franchise where people come in and take big swings at a very high level.
But if I'm a director, I'm like, no fucking way do I want to do another. The expectations are impossible.
Terrifying.
And there's no Cameron zag is so obvious.
Right.
Where the hell are you going to zag from that? Anyway, we'll talk about it.
The pit of despair is where you zag.
Now, David Hill and Walter Hill and David Giler, the sort of stewards of Alien, the producers, and the great Walter Hill, of course. We all love Walter Hill. Great old grumpus that he is now. They make this treatment. They send it to William Gibson, who has written Neuromancer. And William Gibson writes a script that I feel like we were talking about, Matt.
I might have when we were texting.
It's quite notorious as like one of those great unproduced scripts that people sort of lionize.
Right. And now they've made like an audible, like a drama out of it, an audio drama. There's a graphic novel. There's a novel. Like you can consume it almost every way except as a movie now.
Yes.
Right. And I feel like we may have briefly mentioned it on our other episode, but he calls his joking summary is space commies hijack alien eggs, big problem in mall world.
Yeah,
because it's set in a giant mall.
Right.
It's a very cool script, I will say. It's very different from this movie.
Well, right. And it's mostly about Hicks.
Yes, which I think was his remit. I think he was told, like, Ripley will come in for the fourth movie.
Right.
So write us a Hicks adventure.
Yeah.
Right.
Rennie Harlan was supposed to direct it. He had just made Nightmare on Elm Street 4, and I guess that was enough.
Yeah,
I mean, Nightmare on Elm Street 4 is fun. I'm not.
Yeah, that's Dream Child or Dream Master?
Dream Master.
Yeah.
Dream Child is kind of bad.
I kind of like Dream Child. But yeah, no, Harlan's in a weird place to be.
Well, Harlan
This
is
is
just...
before he does Die Hard 2?
Yes.
Yeah, and Ford Fairlane.
Well, Ford Fairlane is what he gets handed when this falls apart. Ford Fairlane, of course, being the Andrew Dice Clay movie.
What a perfect apology job.
But yes, it's like the Sulaco drifts into this sort of space communist empire, like Marxist place, and they pick them up.
Rennie, we got bad news and good news for you. The bad news is you're not making Alien 3 anymore. You're not making the third Alien film.
Oh.
The good news is you are making the first Ford Fairlane movie.
Did you? You're an Andrew Dice Clay boy, Ben.
Kickstart the franchise.
No. Okay.
No. He reminded me too much of the people
like
that
the
lived
jerks.
in the town that I grew up with in New Jersey.
Gave you shit.
Yeah.
Right. Because he's not very alternative, Andrew Dice Clay.
No, not at all.
Yeah, so it's this whole clever script of
he's more of like a I say slurs kind of
no,
vibe.
I mean that was his vibe in the 80s
yes,
very much.
has
anyone seen Ford Fairlane? I've not seen Ford Fairlane.
No.
I have, but
And
it's been a while.
It's a very like Matt Singer project for you to
Yes,
watch.
it's schlock.
The worst garbage.
Exactly. Exactly. Shovel it in my face.
Right. I wouldn't be surprised if Ford Fairlane had like an Arby's tie-in at the time. Ford's got the meats.
Anyway, like it's a cool script. You can check it out. Like it's basically like Weyland-Yutani has an army of aliens. The space Marxists have their own army. There's a big battle.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's insane.
Yeah,
Right? I mean,
Yeah,
that's my
yes.
diagnosis of it.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah.
Cold War in space. Rennie Harlan comes on board.
but the producers didn't really like it.
No.
It's sort of
they thought it was crazy.
Yes.
Yes.
And so
I think everyone else kind of liked it.
it just becomes this like revolving door of like takes and writers and directors and until it ultimately winds up with Fincher.
Right. They give it to Eric Red, near dark writer, who revises it down basically in terms of scale. And then David Twohy, the great David Twohy.
Yes.
The fugitive writer, right?
Yeah.
Pitch Black Man later, which is sort of like Alien adjacent, right? Very Alien vibes, the Pitch Black movies.
Yes. And it's almost very Alien 3 vibe specifically.
Yeah. Like bald people in impressively bleak sci-fi conditions.
Correct.
Yes. He had just written Critters 2. It is weird that they're scooping people out of the like New Line Cinema like horror sequels.
Yeah.
But whatever. I guess that was kind of hot shit back then.
when this should
like
be your
in
sort of
the genre
platinum
world.
franchise.
I mean, but I think back then it was, even if it was a big deal for, it's still a fucking sci-fi horror movie, right?
Yeah.
Like that's still like just lesser than, even if Aliens got Oscar nominations. I don't know.
So is the first Alien 78?
79.
79. It is insane to process that this movie comes out 13 years after Alien.
Yes.
You know, where it's
Right.
like, you can understand the seismic shift in the industry between Alien and Aliens and the shift between Aliens and this. But when you remove Aliens from the middle and you just look at what's changed in the studio system in 13 years, you do understand how just even by like 1990, they're maybe starting to pull up the ramps and go like, how much do we want to deal with people who think of themselves as artists?
Right.
Is it better to get guys who can just get
Let's
it
just get
done?
technicians. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there's certainly, we haven't really talked about it yet, but there was certainly a point in the development of Alien 3 where they could have gone that route.
Yes.
And they specifically were like, you know what? Maybe not.
Right. All right. Let's see. I just want to. Twoey is the one who brings in the prison planet concept. Okay.
Yes.
Harlan exits. He's like, I'm riding the dice train. Okay. I'm rolling the dice.
Well, I think
I'm gone.
I'm pretty sure his thing was he had these very ambitious ideas that, again, like Fox was just like, we're not paying for these sorts of
Whole
things.
planet made of wood.
Well, that's Vincent Ward. We haven't got to yet.
getting to Wood Planet, my favorite thing in the world.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
Harlan was like, well, we should go to the planet where the aliens come from.
Sure.
Right.
Which is like
an obvious pitch.
it's
yes.
right, but it would, and potentially quite an expensive
Right.
one.
H.R.
They were like,
Geiger drew up a design, looked like a butthole.
I mean, this is the
Big
whole thing.
anus
There's
planet.
been so many
Buttcast, if you
alien
will.
A buttcast.
movies and
Yes.
prequels and sequels, and yet no one has ever actually really been like, let's put the aliens on Earth or let's go to Alien
Right.
Planet.
Right.
They keep brushing up against it and then being like, we'll save that for next time.
and those were the two things that Rennie Harlan supposedly wanted to do, which they wouldn't
Rennie
let him do.
Harlan's he's kind of a fastball down the middle guy, right? He's like, Die Hard 2, Die Harder.
Yeah. Let's just die a little harder. Let's not freak people out. Just die a little bit harder.
So Troy writes this prison script, but Ripley is not really a character in it.
Okay.
So they're like, get back here, because now we've decided Ripley should be the star. Like,
Sure.
whatever. Some like come to Jesus moment has happened.
Smart decision.
Right. And then they see this film, The Navigator, by New Zealand director Vincent Ward.
Yes.
And they're like, we love this guy, which is clearly what they did with Jeunet later, too, where they're just sort of like, well, this guy has a unique artistic vision.
Right.
Like, we should just have a meeting with him. They bring him in, and he pitches them this sort of medieval concept of a wooden planet.
Love it.
I just think this is when Hollywood was at its best.
Yes.
Someone could walk into a studio and be like, the whole planet is wood.
And even if
Anyone
it
ever thrown that at you?
even if
What
it
do
didn't
you
happen,
mean?
they
You're about to
consider
start
it. They
asking
consider it.
questions. I don't know that there are answers.
What do they
Like
mean?
trees when you say wood?
What
Or
do they
you're
mean
saying-
coming from Ben Hosley, the man who, when we watched Treasure Planet for this show, said, I was disappointed that the entire planet wasn't a treasure. And
is
we
true.
said, what do you mean? Like it was made out of treasure? And you went, no, like the planet is a chest.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Big
And I
chest
stand
yeah.
by
with
that.
with a keyhole.
Right. But
Right.
So Ben is bumping on planet made of wood.
Well, yeah, because trees are made of wood,
Correct.
and trees cover a lot of the planet.
Yeah.
But is this just like a big?
It's like a structure.
Man-made.
Is it like the inside of a baseball? You know what I mean? Or
Yeah,
you
I
know,
think
like
kind
just
of
a
that.
solid wood planet.
I pictured it more like it was a man-made construction out of
Exactly.
wood
Yes.
that is now
Right.
in orbit.
Somehow it has atmosphere now.
Boards nailed together.
But it's like the idea is that they're
Ben's
like
rubbing his
Luddites.
hands together trying to
rej-
process this.
They reject all technology,
Right.
and
Yeah.
it's populated by monks.
By monks. And what I think is my favorite thing about all this is that they hear this and they don't go, please leave the office.
Yes. Right.
Immediately, your parking will not be validated.
Right.
They're instead like, why don't you go and write
Here's
Wood
$40
Planet?
million.
Yeah,
That's the thing.
right.
When you say this was your favorite era of Hollywood, it's like they wouldn't let you do this, but they'd think about it for a while.
Wood Planet, eh? Now
they're
it
all
would be
monks.
like, how many women in STEM can be in the movie?
Right.
Like, to what extent can it not do anything, right? Like,
Yes.
the
How
film
does
has
it
to
set
be-
up number 4?
How does it set? Will Saudi Arabia be mad at us if we make this movie?
Can he
'Cause
be
if not, we
recruited
can't
by
do
G.I.
it.
Joe at the end?
And they're just like, I don't know, write the Wood Planet script. Here's a
Right.
brick of cocaine, and
Right.
like, see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So they start writing this.
That's part of the WGA strike, right? to guarantee that writers get a brick of cocaine on their first draft.
Exactly. Right. Colombian pure cocaine.
The good shit.
Chloe somehow catches wind like, hey, they got someone writing a Wood Planet script. And he's like, are you fucking like pitting scripts against each other at this point? Like, what is going on?
I could write a planet made out of something.
Absolutely.
And so they're like, all right, fuck you, you're out. You know, we're going all in on Wood Planet.
Yeah.
And Vincent Ward is writing Wood Planet, but he's like, I don't really know what to do with Ripley. I don't know why she would be here. Like this, I have just all these monk concepts. They bring in production designers and they're like, this is going to cost a fortune.
Yeah.
Like everything's going to be made of wood. Like, are you crazy? And so finally, like it gets all the way up and some studio exec is like, can you nix the Wood Planets? Like, can we be done?
And that was like a line in the sand for Ward.
Ward leaves the project, but he does get a story credit, and it's like,
He's the only one with a story credit, I think.
Sort of bananas. The screenplay is credited to Guyler and Hill and Larry Ferguson, whoever that is. And it's sort of this, they're mishing up the monks with the prison planet. They turn the monks into prisoners, but they're kind of religious. They're just smushing everything together.
One of the problems with the movie, I think, is that it kind of winds up being like, well, they're obsessed with religion, but they're prisoners.
Right.
But they don't really, their religious ideas are so nebulous and vague. They have Charles Dance almost like acknowledge that with a line of dialogue, how it's like, well, they're apocalyptic, millenarian, I don't know.
It's vague. They've turned to God in their desperate time. But yes, it's a little vague what exactly
it's one
they
of those
believe.
classic studio too long development movies that has like 10 phantom limbs.
Yes,
of like this
100%.
clearly used to extend into something that actually functions.
Right.
And through all these drafts mushed together, nothing's been dropped completely.
Right. And the other thing is that after all of these drafts, all of the writing, all of the developing, all the ideas, when they do finally get Fincher, they start making a movie without a script.
Yes.
Which is bananas and absurd also. It's like after all this time, because what happened, which we haven't said yet, is at some point during all of this ridiculous development, Fox is like, this is good enough. You're coming out on X date.
Yeah,
and
that's
you
exactly
have
what
to hit
happens.
it.
Right.
And then they have to, and then when Ward leaves, they have to come up with a director, and then they have to basically like, well, here's all the pieces of things we have.
Right.
How can we turn this into something that can come out on this date? And it's like a case of like, well, we've made these amazing sets. How can we fit them into this movie that we're making now? And how can we have prisoners who are also kind of monkish? And the movie does, as much as I do like it, it does at times feel like a jumble of different disparate elements.
Absolutely. But Matt, to be fair, we have to give credit where credit is due. Every time a studio has said, this is good enough, just start making it and we'll figure it out later, it has worked perfectly.
Every time. You're right.
Unfortunately, there are examples of that being true.
Yes.
And I do think that convinces studios like, yeah, we'll be like fucking that movie.
1 out of 100.
It's rare. Yes. And when you hear about it, not only is it rare, it sounds stressful.
Yeah.
and I'd rather
that
not
would
do
certainly
it
be
that
the
way.
case here.
Right.
Fincher,
Not only does it sound stressful, but you like read interviews with the people who worked on those movies and they were like, that was the worst period of my entire life. I don't view that as a career triumph.
I think the thing that's cool about Alien 3, though, is that the parts of it that are coherent are the parts that reflect that process.
Yes.
Because you feel that kind of anger and frustration and negativity in the movie. I mean, that and the hatred of the corporation and how they're trying to, what I was going to say way a while ago that I don't think I ever even said was like, the alien in this movie is David Fincher in some weird way. The corporation they want to
singer take.
They want to control him.
That's a good ass
They
take.
want to.
Right. They're hurting him. Come on, go over there.
But
Go over there.
they think, just hang on to him. He's amazing.
Right.
Once we get him, think of the possibilities with this guy.
Yeah.
Just don't kill him. We can control him.
Right.
And they bring him in, and what does he do? He refuses to go along, and it's like I just feel like, this is like the movie the alien would make.
And
it's the one thing they didn't account for. The director would have ideas. Yes,
right.
Yes.
And Ripley in this case is kind of Sigourney. Whereas I think most of the other directors have viewed Ripley as like their analog.
Sure.
Right?
Right.
In this movie, Ripley is the one person who's like, I know he's a little terrifying. I think I kind of understand.
I can deal with this. It's true. Just lock me down there with him. It's fine.
Yeah.
I'll get him where you need him to go.
He's not going to kill me. I know
Right,
that at
right.
the very least.
Right.
I'm safe.
Fincher does say that his initial pitch when they bring him in was more expensive. I mean, this is his quote, and it is the thing I think we'll find. He's a very quotable man. Mm-hmm. He's very funny, and he's very dry, and he's just got away with words. Mm-hmm. He says, okay, my pitch was like a David Lean movie. It was about pedophiles in outer space. It was a huge movie and very complicated and political. There were 3 Lance Henriksons running around. Paul McGann was a serial killer. At the end of the movie, you had the alien running around with 3,000 stormtroopers on the way. It was massive and strange. And I went like, like here's this movie. And they said, nah, we can have like 18 guys show up at the end. And I said, well, they should have a cool contraption then. And they were like, nah, we can't afford that. So already they're just, as he puts it, cutting the balls off the thing. Right. They're like, like you said, they're just like, it's fine if it's one alien killing some guys.
Yeah.
Just shut up. Just point the
classic,
camera at it.
Don't overthink
assholes.
this.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's an R-rated movie.
Yes.
They don't want to spend $200 million on it in fucking 1992 or whatever.
No, and I mean, I was talking about with someone there's a lot of hand-wringing going on at the time we're recording this in July about the perceived failure of Dial of Destiny, and just like, how could Disney spend this much on 80-year-old Harrison Ford, right? Why would they make that movie at that number?
Right.
And I do think, whether or not this was part of their strategy, by just putting Indiana Jones back in theaters, it does kind of boost the older Indiana Jones movies and their value to Disney. Right. Yeah, no. There's a whole tale. It boosts the value of him staying in the theme parks and all this sort of shit.
Yes.
And I think there was this version of like, because there was all this machinery of them being like video games, comic books, toys, cartoon show, Pepsi, all this shit. What
Pepsi.
Fox ultimately did, and what Disney in buying Fox has recognized, is just like, the alien as iconography is so valuable. It is so valuable to have a third movie in theaters before a decade is up.
Right. We just got to do something, guys.
Right. And like the other stuff
That's
we're
why
doing,
they thought about Wood Planet.
Totally. And the other stuff that they're doing doesn't need to really have anything to do with the third movie. It just helps to have like posters in theaters. But
that's why you can't do it this way, because that is what they were doing. They're just like, it's Alien 3.
I mean,
Alien 3.
The first teaser for Alien 3 is like, it claims that the movie's going to be set on Earth.
Yes.
It's like they don't even really know what the movie they're making is by the time they're advertising it.
They said it couldn't be done, but there's a third Alien movie, is basically their pitch.
Yeah.
Oh my God, wait, because aliens are kind of like space bugs. What if there was a new variant of aliens, but it was like termites and it started chomping down on the Wood Planet?
Huge problem for the Wood Planet.
That would be a fucking big
perfect
issue.
movie. Perfect movie.
Ripley's not even involved. It's just them eating wood.
Yeah. And then the monks fall through a hole.
I just love
right
this idea
through
that
into space.
I could just walk in there and be like, whole planet's made of milk. And they're like, is there an alien in it? I'm like, yeah, sure. We can put an alien in that. And they're like, yeah, get to work. It's fine. We just need there to be an alien movie. Fincher's the one who has the idea of shaving Ripley's head, which is such a good idea.
Incredible idea.
And, he doesn't want her to be, fucking... Ripley in her underwear dodging the alien, right? He wants her to be this sort of hardened figure.
Yes.
We decided the reason this keeps happening to her is because she's cursed to do. She's cursed to fight this thing till it's over.
Just the take I love. It's my favorite thing about this.
Yeah, if I'm Ripley, I'm never going to sleep again, by the way. Every time I wake up, I'm in a new fucking place with another goddamn alien.
Yeah.
And I have to explain to all these new people, like, you don't understand, this thing is the worst.
You do question the whole hypersleep element of these movies at a certain point when it keeps happening.
Blah, blah, blah.
Oh, so blah, blah, blah.
I'm just reading,
what if
Fincher
a planet was
about
blah,
all the scripts.
blah, blah?
What if a planet was blah, blah, blah?
I think that was Fox's pitch. Look, there's tons and tons of fighting. We should talk about the plot, though. But, the story of Fincher making this movie is just him constantly being slapped down by Fox over and over again in terms of budget, and in terms of just taking too long to do everything, and Fox being like, what is the matter with you?
Yeah.
Like, why are you not delivering for us as fast as we want?
Yeah.
Right.
Why is the budget out of control? All this.
Why can't you just give us this movie even though you don't have a script that's finished? What's wrong with you?
A big thing they talk about in that mishmash commentary is that, Richard Edlund, a legend of the field, basically at the top says, this is one of the very last like totally photochemical, optically printed movies, right? There are very limited amount of digital effects in the movie. It's mostly at the very end.
They're, like when the alien's head almost explodes, that's CGI, but it's really next to nothing.
But there's like certain pieces of this that look really dodgy that people always outline.
Mostly the alien.
Right, which is mostly a rod puppet with digital removal. It is just that like the compositing is so bad.
Yes.
And that is largely because I think they were just like, we do not have time to get this right.
They lacked time and money. Because I do think it could look better.
Fincher would have worked it until it looked great. You know? And there's a lot of just sort of like, just put it in there. Just
some of these shots in the assembly cut are like new shots too, right?
Yes.
Didn't they like insert a couple of things?
I think when it first came out, maybe it wasn't, but then they made a second version.
Spruced it up a
they
little
spruced
better.
it. I think
they
the
also
audio,
brought in actors.
Yeah, the audio is improved. I know.
Because initially you could not hear the audio.
Yes.
And they had to have subtitles. Which is cute. I mean, I love the DVD for its kind of like, popsicle sticks and, bubblegum kind of like, look, we're just putting this together.
Yeah, and this was that era where DVDs were so big that there was that thing of like, really, Scott, we'll give you $10 million to rework Blade Runner.
Yeah, we're going to make so much money.
Right? Like there's actual budget being put into these reconstruction projects.
Even though some of I totally agree, like a lot the shots you're talking about, they don't look good.
No.
Right.
But then on the other hand, there's like that exterior we talked about before that's gorgeous and amazing, and they show it on screen in the theatrical cut for 45 seconds.
I think a lot of this movie looks incredible, and I think like the effects work of the alien itself looks good. It's the combination of the two elements that don't look good. I mean, Ebert's slam on this movie was famously, it's like the best looking bad movie ever made.
Sure.
Ebert, you say.
Roger Ebert.
Ebert, you say.
Did you watch?
Ebert.
We can talk about it later, I suppose.
Interesting.
Did they have
Someone should write a book about it.
Did they have an Alien 3 review?
They did. There is you can watch it on YouTube for sure.
I assume they were negative.
That was
2 thumbs up, or is there?
Let me find the thing here. I think that best looking bad movie was from the 7 review when they were talking about Fincher later.
Hold on.
But I was looking at.
I'll just while you guys are looking things up.
2 thumbs down.
Yeah.
I literally have a 100,000 word document on my computer with every review they ever gave. So it just takes a second.
His most damning things were things he said later, right? So Fight Club is when he said Alien 3 is one of the best looking bad movies I've ever seen. Alien Resurrection, Ebert says, I lost interest in Alien 3 when I realized that the aliens could at all times outrun and outleap the humans, so all the chase scenes were contrivances.
Sure. I sort of know what he means. It's the problem of the alien of being so powerful.
Yeah.
Right.
But then it's like, it's just always panic when the alien is there, which I find so exciting.
And they have in this movie specifically, they have I call them like Raimi-esque shots of the point of view of the alien. But they're like going around the corridors are so cool.
I love that shit. It's sort of amazing no one had ever thought to do that.
I also think being able to outrun the alien for most of the movie isn't a problem when your movie is working towards the fixed endpoint of death is the only escape, right?
Right.
Because sort of the point it's making is like she's caught in this constant cycle. It's never killing her, but she's never totally freed of it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's someone at the door.
Ben, would you mind just getting the door quickly? I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Creek.
Hey, buddy.
Hello.
How's it going, man?
I'm doing okay. Sir, what's going on?
Not
We're in the middle of a report.
Man, not too much.
Okay.
Just staying mellow, you know.
Cool. Yeah, what are you doing here? How can I help you?
Yeah, my name's Trip Flippy.
Okay, Trip Flippy. I see the skateboard.
Yeah, I'm Trip Flippy. I just like to keep things chill and mellow, man.
Cool.
But
Okay.
I got one vice. I don't know if you can tell from my energy. There's like one thing I like to do that helps me mellow out.
I don't know. Tell me.
I like to get hired.
Oh.
You could say I'm something of a job head. I love kicking back with a nice job, man.
Okay.
I like to get hired.
That's cool. Well,
I'm cool.
Can I tell you a little bit about a cool service that's maybe just right up your alley?
Yeah, man, totally.
It's actually this week's sponsored, Indeed.
What?
Yeah, that's right. Indeed is a hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one
They
place.
get you hired?
That's right. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed's powerful hiring platform can help you do all that.
So I can just like upload my resume to Indeed, then people hire me.
That's right. It's streamlined hiring with powerful tools that find you match candidates.
You're blowing my mind right now, man.
And with Instant Match, over 80% of employers get quality candidates.
Yeah.
Such as someone like yourself.
Yeah.
Whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job, according to Indeed data.
Yeah, baby. That rules.
So something that I really love, right, about Indeed.
Yeah, because you're like kind of like you run a small business, right?
I do.
That's why I knocked on the door. I thought I was asking if there was a job.
Yeah, I don't have a job for you currently.
Okay.
But I mean, I'd be interested to definitely read your resume. I see you just have there in your hand.
Yeah.
Just looks like a
Stack of
bag full of
resumes.
doobies.
It's got. That's what I call my resume. No, these are rolled up resumes. Let me take this out.
Oh,
for you.
wow.
Look
Okay.
at that.
I got to
They're
say,
tightly rolled resumes, hand rolled.
You've got impressive handwriting in
Thank
that
you.
it's so sloppy. I can barely read it.
Yeah, well, because it's hard to fit all these jobs on one resume.
Okay.
I work 800 jobs.
Yeah.
As I said, I'm a job head.
Well, I would say if you scan this and
Yeah.
upload it to Indeed,
Yeah.
you're bound to maybe get hired somewhere.
Well, I heard a rumor that candidates who are invited to apply are 3 times more likely to apply to your job than candidates who only see it in search, according to US Indeed data. And you get one step closer to the hire by immediately matching with quality candidates.
Yeah, that's the thing about Indeed. It does the hard work for you. Indeed shows you candidates whose resumes on Indeed fit your description immediately after you post so you can hire fast. Indeed's hiring platform matches you with quality candidates instantly.
Well, that's rad. So, like, I don't know, like, is there any sort of like call to action, or is it just kind of like people are left to their own devices to do what they want?
Okay, here's the call to action.
Oh, cool.
Start hiring now with the $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/check. Offer good for a limited time. Claim your $75 credit now at Indeed.com/check. Just go to Indeed.com/check and support the show by saying you heard about it on this podcast. Indeed.com/check. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the podcast, by the way. You want to know what my favorite episode was?
Yeah.
Steve Jobs, man. Okay, get out of here, Trip Flippy.
I think we're going to be hearing a lot from Trip.
I think Trip Flippy's going to be a little bit of a regular.
So yeah, look, as Fincher comes aboard, there's just still constant more rewrites, constant fighting. I forgot that Rex Pickett, the author of the book Sideways, was brought in to do one last rewrite. And Fincher took him out to dinner and was like, "This is what's going on. This is what they're telling me. I'm telling them this. They're not. This is going to be way over budget."
By the way, I'm not drinking Merlot. Go on.
And Pickett apparently was like, "You are correct. They are crazy."
Yeah.
Sent a big memo to Hill and Geiler, basically being like, "You need to listen to Fincher. He's like not wrong in telling you all this stuff." But nonetheless, they basically go into production with an unfinished script, 45 pages of a script, that they've been fucking fighting over for 10 years practically. Fincher says he tried to quit on day one, and his agent was like, "You can't. You'll never work in this town again. Like, you just have to do it."
Yeah.
And Fincher, as he talks about over and over again, it's just always, "I'll never do that again. Like, I'll never start a production without a finished script, without knowing exactly how much I'm going to spend and how long it's going to take and blah, blah, blah." Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Supposed to be a 93-day shooting schedule. Fox cut it to 70 days. They wanted 50 special effects shots. They gave him 25. So they did lots of 18-hour days to deal with that. Sounds fun. It was incredibly stressful. Weaver, very positive about Fincher, just in general.
Would
And
love
like always.
to see them work together now.
Yeah, that's true.
That's like,
Good point.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising for how highly they speak of each other in a bad set of circumstances.
She's at the height of her powers in a way.
Yes.
He's at the bottom, but
Yeah.
like she's just always been like, it sucked making that movie, but he was a total pro.
Right, and I think he
him.
felt the same way about her, and they feel like they could do so much good shit together.
Totally. Jordan Cronenweth obviously is supposed to be the cinematographer. He gets Parkinson's disease, is diagnosed with it. A few weeks into production, is replaced with Alex Thompson.
Yeah.
So that's one issue
I think
that you don't want to run into.
He barely shot anything, but he set the look.
Yes.
That then was
kind of iconic.
on.
The cinematographer Blade Runner, obviously, an iconic figure.
This would have been his last film.
Yeah. I mean, he retired.
He ends up not working yet. Yeah. And then, of course, obviously, his son becomes Fincher's DP for many of his future films. But they talked about in the commentary how much they tried to establish this visual style of the camera is often very low. It's like sort of on the ground, and especially within the prison, the sets all kind of have this like slats and grating, so they can light it from underneath rather than above and shoot up towards the ceiling, which I do think psychologically creates such a different feel than the previous two Alien movies, where they're in very confined spaces, you know, where you're in low ceilings, where you're in ships, where you're in like hallways and shit like that. Like the first scene where you see all the prisoners sort of like debating about what to do about this woman who crash landed, and the camera's basically going up all their nostrils, and they're being lit from under their chins.
You're not wrong, yeah.
Right.
And they're kind of looming, and they're kind of scary. Like, you know, you're like, who are these? You know, how much should I trust these guys?
That's the other thing is that like the other movies have been like, you got blue collar grunts, and then you have these evil corporate people, right?
Yes.
And the greatest evil, more than the aliens, are these companies, these corporations.
Always the great villain of all these movies.
Right. And then this, but they often present themselves at first as being friendly. And then this movie is starting out by introducing you to a bunch of guys and being like, these guys might be the problem.
Sure.
These guys might actually be the problem, and you're going to be on edge trying to figure out who can be trusted or who can't. Because you know all of them are here for a reason in a way. So it is very effectively disorienting at that opening section.
I think the cleverest thing is casting Dance, because he is menacing.
Right.
He's playing
a
good guy in this movie who is good.
Yeah.
And his motivations are good, and then he gets his head bitten by the alien. And
it's more like poked, I think.
Yes. Yeah. And then he is deceased for the rest of the film, does not appear. And yet, even at the end of the movie, you're like, so is Dance on her side or not, though? Because you never know with that guy. You know?
Well, he's got a barcode in the back of his neck.
Yes.
You don't understand exactly what he's doing there. And then right at the moment you get the answer, he's dead.
Right.
You start to get an
and it's almost, in the theatrical cut, it's almost exactly halfway through.
Yes.
Right.
It's similar.
And it's a great, like, shock moment. I one of the supplementary materials, and I forget which one now, I think it's one of the actors maybe, is talking about how this, like, Fincher would talk to him about his influence and be like, well, this is my Hitchcock moment. And he wouldn't say what the Hitchcock moment was, but then I realized it's this.
Right. It's
this is
the
Psycho.
killing Janet Leigh halfway through your movie.
And he even puts the curtain there, the shower curtain. It's like,
God bless.
Yeah, it's like, once you put all those pieces together, it makes perfect sense. The problem is that he is so good in this movie, and then 15 minutes after, the last hour of this movie, he's gone.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of other bald guys who don't really.
I mean,
but then my man Dutton is fucking bench pressing 8 million pounds. Yeah.
But Dance is just such an interesting, a very alien character, sort of similar to Henriksen or Ian Holm, where you're like, this guy's sort of like soft and intelligent and a little dry in a way that I can't trust.
Inscrutable. You're not entirely sure of his motives for a long time.
But it's a doubling down.
And she also does the dance.
Well, David,
I would too, my friend.
This is my point. It's a doubling down of this movie is like bone deep cynicism, right? Which is like you start out at such a bleak fucking point. You place her in a really bleak environment, and then here's this one glimmer of light. And especially when you're watching the assembly cut, it's an hour until he dies.
Hour 10.
Right. I think that's another benefit of the assembly cut is just you get to take a few more dances with Charles.
Sure. You do a couple more
stick
pirouettes.
On the dance floor for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But you're like, oh, there's this glimmer of hope. This movie is almost nice as like someone finding love and connection in the wake of like great, great trauma, right? And then right at the moment where you feel like, is there a sliver?
Maybe she's found someone again, and it'll be okay.
He's gone. Right. There's like nothing left for her.
It is crazy that she wakes up and they're like, so your friends are dead.
Yeah.
But lucky for you, you're in the worst place in the universe, and no one ever comes here.
Right. They hate women, by the way.
You're gonna have to shave your
head.
You're gonna have to shave your head because we have lice.
You got to shave your head, but even that may not discourage the imprisoned rapists who are everyone who is here,
who haven't seen a woman in decades.
Right. So,
and if you survive the rapist, don't worry. A lot of murderers in here too.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Just general criminality, I suppose. Right. So bad that they got sent. But they're also like, yeah, this used to be like a real place. We used to like, have thousands of people here.
Yeah. Well,
then
thank
everyone
you, Joe
left.
Biden. Yeah.
Right. But just the idea of like, these guys stayed.
Yes.
They really suck.
They chose to stay.
Yes.
Right. We said, this is horrible. We can't do this anymore. And they're like,
basically like a cult of being awful.
Well, they're kind of like the people who never left Chernobyl. Like, you know how everyone's like, well, Russia, Soviet Union evacuated that. But like, there's like 40 grandmas who are like, I'm not fucking going. Who cares? Right. So I get another head or whatever. Like, we're just going to tough it out.
But I almost feel like these are people who self-identify as garbage and are just like, I should not be in general population.
Sheesh. So yes. So Ripley is on, what is the planet called?
Fury.
Fury. Yes.
161.
I wonder if that was a David Towie contribution.
Pretty.
Because then we get to Furia.
He loves Furiosa. Furia even.
Furia,
sorry, not Furiosa. Yes. So yeah, you've got I guess so if we're talking about the cinematic cut of the movie, the alien who is on the ship, just like Ripley, gets into a dog.
Yes.
If you're talking about the assembly cut, it gets into an ox.
Right.
Because that's the other great thing.
It doesn't really matter, but it's just funny that it's different.
I just like the dog. If I really do have a preference here, and it is the dog, and I will tell you why. It's
I agree with you that the dog makes more sense.
It makes more sense. They set it up better in the assembly cut. It's just like you see some oxen.
Corpse is cool.
Yeah.
Well, you see on the beach when they're retrieving her body that everything's sort of oxen pulled.
Right. But, right. But in the theatrical cut, you see the dog kind of barking, and you see the face hugger looking.
Right.
I just personally, I just love the idea of, again, David Fincher being this nasty, mean-spirited guy, being like, you know how they say, like, you got to say, don't kill the dog?
Right,
guess what we're going to do? We're going to
20 minutes in.
We're going to kill the dog.
Yeah.
And then if that's not bad enough, we're going to have a child autopsy on top of that.
It also
2 scenes later.
It has the Thing vibes as well, obviously.
Yeah.
Like the dog that's, a problem.
I like the oxen scene.
It looks cool.
Better.
It looks like nasty
it looks good.
and interesting.
Right. But it's certainly like,
But like you don't see the alien and then you go like, oh yeah, that's an ox.
Huge oxen vibe.
You're more like, that's kind of like a dog.
That feels like that was the studio note of like, why is this an ox? It behaves like a dog. People are going to be confused.
Goddammit.
Right.
No one knows what an ox is.
That was a big thing, I think, from all these like aborted different drafts and everything. The toy line that comes out at the time of this movie is Alien as 15 different animals.
Oh.
And they were like, oh, there was a point where there was like gorilla alien, snake alien, like, springboard. But then this, it's like, what are you looking for here? It's like 4-legged and it runs fast. Why the fuck are you making it an ox?
I don't know. I'm sure I can see if he had his reasons, but the first hour of this movie is pretty slow.
Yep.
Even in the theatrical cut, I would say the alien's not getting up to much. He throws one guy into a fan.
Sure.
Right. Well, it's slow after he's killed off most of the cast.
No, for sure.
Like the other. I mean, Alien and Aliens start very slowly too.
You got to warm up the pot,
and with way less sort of horror and nightmare. It's like they're just much more grounded and like detail oriented. This one, it's like the opening credits. There's already aliens and face huggers and acid.
That's true.
And then it does slow down. Yes.
But yeah, she's getting to know Dance, who is Clemens. She's sort of meeting the other prisoners, though she's mostly kept away from them. I feel
they're so busy reading.
Right.
Sure.
They're just such smart guys.
They're not super
lost in prayer.
Exactly.
Right.
They're praying. Yeah. Right. They're very like in their own heads.
Scholarly.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, who have we got? We got Dutton, who plays Dylan, who's sort of the leader, the spiritual leader. Who seems just like sort of like a rock solid guy, unlike pretty much anyone else.
And the guy who kind of
sort of burdened with like unspoken guilt.
I was gonna say, where's his sins most heavily?
Right.
Yeah.
You've got Andrews, who is the warden, played by Brian Glover, who's just a classic fucker.
Yes.
That guy is in like a gajillion British TV shows. Always is like, you're like, fuck that guy. He was actually bald, I think, too. Like that's his look.
Yes. He was a professional wrestler.
Hell yeah.
He started out as the Red Devil, and then he became Leon Aris, the Man from Paris.
Sure.
His catchphrase was "Ask him, ref," and how about that then?
How about that then?
His kind of like famous performances, I think the guy who warns them in the pub in American Werewolf in London.
Right. Sure.
But they were talking about, they shot this movie in London and Pinewood.
Yep.
And he was the guy that all the crew guys were like completely enamored with.
Sure.
Ledge.
Right.
An absolute
fucking ledge.
Right. He was the all-star on set.
You got Ralph Brown as 85, Aaron. They
Named
all call him
after-
85 for his IQ score.
Yeah, a little rude.
Who I feel like I best know is Rick Ollier.
Of course.
From Phantom Menace. Matt, if you remember Rick Ollier.
Who could forget Rick
Now
Ollier?
that I didn't
Explains
recognize
like
him.
piloting to
Yes.
Anakin.
Yes, now I see. I'm looking at a picture of him. Yes.
And I believe he's the one who has one of my favorite lines in Phantom Menace, which is when the ship starts blowing up because Anakin's, doing barrel rolls inside of it or whatever. They're like, what's happening? He says, we didn't hit it. And I'm like, you guys suck.
You sure
No
didn't.
You guys do 0 during this movie.
He also, I was rewatching Wayne's World 2 and had forgotten that
he's in
he's
that?
the roadie in that.
Oh, that's right. He's really funny in it.
Really? Because I was like, who's
He's
this
just sort of a
fucking
very familiar
comedic
face.
all-star?
Yeah.
The Brown
it's
M&M
Rick Ollier.
story.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's funny. I feel like we went hard on Rick Ollier back in the Phantom podcast days where
That's
you're like,
funny.
yeah, but you're also just like, this guy just feels like a placeholder. And it's
Sure,
not
yeah,
fucking Ralph Brown's fault at all.
No,
but you're
he's
like,
got a good look.
there's no character written here. And then you watch him in other shit and you're like, this guy has the ability to pop.
Oh, he's juicy.
Yeah.
85 is another character that supposedly Fincher and Fox were fighting over.
Yes.
He wanted him to be like dumber,
Right.
To
Right.
really play up. The whole 85 is his IQ. This or
He
that.
wanted 72. Fox wanted 97.
I will say the
I mean, that's
85 thing
kind
makes
of
no
what
sense. You're like,
happened.
Yeah.
this guy seems perfectly smart. Like,
Right.
I don't really get
Kinda
why
right
he's
in the
supposed
middle.
to be
Right.
dumb.
Yeah.
Right. You got Paul McGann,
Of course.
the Eighth Doctor. I love to invoke that he's
The
Eighth
Lost
Doctor.
Doctor, basically. Yeah.
But an esteemed British actor from With Nail and I and stuff as Golik, who's basically not in the theatrical cut at all.
Right.
And is a major part of the assembly cut. He's the
Yes.
crazy guy.
Yes. Right.
Who sort of worships the alien and keeps fucking things up for everyone else by like letting the alien go free.
Right. And then basically batting cleanup, we have Pete Postlethwaite, the greatest face in the history of cinema.
His character's name, Postlethwaite.
Yeah.
I love that.
What are the odds?
What a coincidence.
And you've got Holt McElhaney,
Who I always like.
as fucking Riddick.
Yeah.
he's got the goggles. Yeah,
I'm always looking out for him, and I always, when he first shows up, go, I can't believe that's Holt McElhaney, because I just think of him as an absolute fucking brick wall of a man.
Yeah.
And he
was
looks
leaner back then.
He looks real lean and kind of baby-faced. Yeah.
Great in this, great in Fight Club. Fincher, reliable guy,
yes, yeah.
obviously.
Yeah. Brings him in for Mindhunter.
And then that's pretty much. And then you got a bunch of randos, but I feel like it's a good group.
Phil Davis, who I love.
I love Phil Davis.
Yeah. But yes, it's a good group of guys.
And Phil Davis is the best. I just rewatched. I have to say this. I'm so sorry.
Please.
2005 miniseries Bleak House, adaptation of Dickens's Bleak House.
The Gillian Anderson one.
and
Yeah.
very, very many other people.
Sure.
And Phil Davis plays Mr. Smallweed, who is a moneylender, villainous character, and he's always in a chair. He doesn't walk. He's always being lifted around, and he's like one of the best characters. And whenever he's brought into the room, he goes, "Shake me up, Judy." He's got this lady who carries him, and she'll like pick him up by the shoulders and like shake him up to sort of like, because
It
he's
sounds like
sunken.
Arrested Development.
It's genuinely those vibes. That's the thing about Dickens. You're
That's
just like,
the
this man was
fucking
wild.
dream.
Shake me up, Judy.
Yeah, I want someone to fucking bring me in and room to room in a chair and ask them to shake me up.
But I do think when this film was test screened, a lot of audiences were like, "Why are there 8 English bald guys who I can't distinguish?"
I mean, I still think that when I watch it.
Yes.
It definitely was a move to just be like, "Yeah, it's gonna be a bunch of dudes." And they're almost all English character actors.
Yeah.
We're not even really gonna, you got Charles Dutton, but apart from that, not a lot of diversity.
Right.
They're all kind of similar ages.
They're wearing the same clothes.
Yeah.
They have the same haircut.
Yeah.
Not even any tattoos, which would have been helpful to differentiate.
Holt McElhaney has like a little teardrop.
Yeah.
I think that's about it.
That's
That's
it.
about it.
Obviously, they got the barcodes,
Right.
but they all got those.
Let's hire like 15 Karen's boys, shave them all, and
it's
put them in
just-
burlap.
They're just.
To me, this is another
Fuck
classic
you.
Fincher
Yes.
hostility gesture.
Uh-huh.
I don't hate it. I just understand a studio maybe.
I mean, I think there
Being
are different
confused.
ways you can defend it,
Yes.
for sure. But definitely one of them is just like as a just a big FU to the audience. I mean, I guess if you're paying a lot of attention and watching very closely,
You watch it over and over.
and you watch it over and over.
Have a guidebook in hand.
Yeah, you can. But it does. I guess it does sort of make you pay attention.
I guess they're banking on people watching it in mother mode, where pop-up
That's
style,
what they
it just points to
as
people and
Fincher
goes,
intended, which
this
we
was
said
the guy who was doing
the
this in that
beginning.
other scene.
So
I mean,
Okay.
Ripley being bald, which maybe you have to justify this way. 100%.
it's an incredible move.
Not only just visually striking, like it gives the whole Joan of Arc thing to the
Yes,
movie,
yes.
like an undeniable the look of her like that with the bald head.
Yeah.
You know, even before the ending where she's jumping into a vat of fire, like it makes that, it like sort of foreshadows that right from the get-go.
And even the sort of like the ego soul death of the whole thing, where it's like she's just removing everything.
Right. She's
right?
just like a living skeleton at this
Yes.
point almost. Like, I feel like the shot of
It is
her.
insane for her to film this 6 months after having a baby.
It is. I mean,
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it.
No.
I mean, I guess she was paid like $10 million, but still.
But to be fair, they did offer you $8 million 6 months after your daughter was born to do Alien 5, and you said no.
It was a bold move.
That's a bold move.
The shot of her, you know, sort of whimpering as the alien is inches from her
The iconic
face.
shot that happens right after.
Is that the
Dance
most
dies.
iconic shot in the Alien
I was
franchise?
making
That's
this
an interesting
argument to
question.
Marie Barty yesterday.
Like as
It's
much
up there.
as, and obviously that's sort of a specific, you know, criteria.
But single
But
image?
it kind of
Yes.
is.
Yes.
And her being bald is so crucial to her iconography, even though it's in the least liked
Right.
Alien
Yes.
movie.
Yes.
And I mean, the other thing about the bald aspect of it, especially, and it's like in that moment it becomes heightened, is that from certain angles she has like this almost alien-esque presence
Yes,
now that she's
totally,
bald,
totally.
and now that she's become potentially the mother of the new alien.
I mean, she's already
it
such
reflects like it. I mean,
interesting physical presence. She's
Yes.
so tall and skinny, and
but
yeah.
like it's not just she'll look striking and cool. Like there are many different ways to defend. I don't know about defending all the dudes being
Yeah.
bald and hard to keep track of, but but Ripley having that haircut, I think, adds a lot to the movie on a bunch of different levels.
That's the other thing. To get back to my point of this being a fascinating movie for her to make after she's had a kid that's so much being haunted by the loss of Newt.
Sure.
The other half of this movie is her realizing she is pregnant with a thing she absolutely does not want.
Right.
Absolutely.
Like just two fascinating mental states for someone who just had a child.
And the weird, it's a security blanket for her, and also it's her death.
Yep.
Impending death, so she knows this is it.
Right.
In
It's
a way.
it's the thing that's keeping her alive and the thing that makes her want to kill herself.
I mean, it's what makes the most sense about the ending, which we can talk about, obviously, which is just like they come to her and they're like, we can handle this. We'll take the alien out. You'll be fine. You'll go back and cryosleep. And at that point, I think everyone in the audience is like, not only do you not trust them, you're just going to fucking wake up back to more aliens.
Right.
It is time to end this.
there is one
Like,
way this ends.
Right. Like that is actually a worse option than
Yes.
jumping into lava.
Absolutely.
Right?
I'd choose the lava every time.
No, I would go. I'd go. I love Henriksen. I just want to pal around with that guy.
Sure.
Right. Yeah. Early in the film, after the autopsy of Newt and all this other grimness, she does boot up Henriksen, Bishop.
I love this weird.
You're into this, Ben?
Yeah,
I mean,
he's
it's
so
so
melty.
good. He's so gooey.
It's a beautiful
the one
animatronic.
fucked up eye.
Yeah.
The way he talks. I mean, just the best trick in Alien, having the robot sort of half be able to talk.
Yes.
It's so good.
But this was like almost, it might have been a record number of servos within the face of this thing.
That makes sense.
And I do think the
Love a
fact
servo.
that it's like the thing is crashed and it's been a while and it's sort of deteriorated and all of that helps them because you're like, well, it's a really good likeness, and any part of it that's less animated than the real actor you saw in the last movie is like degradation of a broken robot.
I assume you're a Henriksen guy, Matt.
Sure. Absolutely.
I mean,
And he's awesome. I mean, both parts in this movie, he's really good.
he's really good in both parts. I mean, he's also a reason. He like gives Alien versus Predator a star by itself. Like he's
Yeah, I
just
would
like a genre movie
Hall of Fame.
Hall of Famer.
When's the last time we've seen him?
He's pretty old.
That's why I'm asking.
He's
like,
83 years old.
is he sort of soft retired?
Unless he's doing direct-to-video. Oh, he's doing direct-to-video
Okay,
movies.
well,
Yeah.
that's the
He's-
answer.
He is the
he
narrator.
made 5 movies last year.
He's the narrator of that Alien 3, like the audio drama, the William Gibson
Oh,
Alien
sure.
3
God bless
audio
him.
drama.
I like that. Yeah, he has.
He has 1 gajillion credits on IMDb.
Yeah, he's got a credit called "Bring Me the Head of Lance Henriksen," in which he plays Lance.
Good.
Post-production, filmed in 2010. Can't wait for that to come out.
I don't know if we're going to see that one.
No.
Did you guys ever watch Millennium?
No, I know you were a big
did
Millennium
not.
guy, right?
That's
again,
your
a
shit.
A great era of TV where they're like, I don't know, put it on Friday nights. Like, and it's just like they would just air this shit. It's so weird. That show is demented. Classic X-Files blank checks type thing where he's like, can I put my like weird sort of kind of Illuminati conspiracy theories with like dark violence on Friday nights? And they're like, yeah,
anything
fine.
you want.
Yes, you can.
It's sort of vaguely X-Files connected. Great, let's do it. I do want to read this quote. This is from Rick Birnbaum, who was in charge of Fox at the time. He said, well, first, you could have someone piss against the wall for 2 hours and call it Alien 3 and it would do $30 million.
I mean,
and then he later said, I can release a 15-minute black screen and it would do 15. Which I don't think is the right attitude for them to have, to be clear. Like, they do have this power of like, why do you care? It doesn't matter. We already opened the movie. It's called Alien 3.
Studios used to have more contempt for the people who went to go see the movies than the people who made the movies.
The wall.
Right. There used to be. There's a flip now, where now they're just like, well, the audience is king. Fuck you, you shitty writers.
How dare you have an idea? Right. So, what happens next in Alien 3? It's kind of a plot-light movie in a way.
Right.
Very, very much so.
They just are here. They're in this shitty place, and then there's one alien.
Yes.
Which I think is the right move.
Yeah, you're back to the sort of original Alien slasher vibes of people getting picked off one by one.
This is a unique alien, though. This is a dog.
It's a doggy alien. It's a nasty little freak.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like the kills in this movie aren't even that insane.
No.
The guy getting fan chopped is kind of cool.
But that's the first
That's
one.
the first one.
Yeah.
And then after that, I mean,
the
Charles
dance scene is
really cool.
awesome.
Yes.
But then it does become, even as cool as some of the POV shots are, it
Those
does
are
get a little repetitive when he's just kind of picking off bald guys in those tunnels.
Like Brian Glover getting sucked into the sort of ceiling is like a fun jump, but it's not actually like a sort of graphic kill or anything. And then after that, I couldn't even tell you.
I'll say,
I mean, Charles Dutton's death is very triumphant and tragic, but that doesn't even really involve the alien. He just gets
feel the repetition of the environment too, right?
Yeah.
Where you're just like, the who ended up being the DP on this movie who replaces Cronenworth?
His name is Alex Thompson. He's best known for Excalibur.
So he was talking about he entered into this. Cronenworth had set everything up, and Cronenworth and everything had been art directing. He's just jumping into an already moving train, right? And he was like, I was very appreciative that David had already designed his movie where everything was gray, because I hate white walls, and they sort of sting the light and they bounce the light back off, and it's hard to light actors against white walls and whatever. And it was really good for sort of absorbing the light and letting me focus on the actors. And you were like, right, but the entire movie, especially when you're not on the assembly cut, you don't have the brief glimpse of the outside world.
Yeah, there's no pops of color or light.
Right. It's either gray or you're in like the furnace.
The furnace.
And then it's sort of lit with like a
red
diarrhea.
brown. Yeah.
Right. A sort of rust color.
It's a dirty furnace.
Yes.
What do they make? They make like metal sheets or whatever. Yeah.
Covers for toxic waste containers.
Right. And I think
they're basically like a box factory.
Yes.
I think these sets are great, but you also
really cool.
feel in a movie where it's mostly just about people continually getting hunted down by the alien in hallways. You're like, so they have like one hallway they keep shooting from different angles, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. I do think that's what was going on over at old Pinewood Studios. It's like how Freaks and Geeks or any high school, they really just had the one, hallway. Yeah. You know, with the, right, exactly. And you just kind of move it around.
Yeah.
Because in the theatrical cut, they're basically just like, let's herd him down there and get him.
Yes.
In the assembly cut, they do that, lock him down there, then he gets unlocked by Paul McGann,
right,
re-escapes, and then they do it again.
Yeah. Right.
It really just kind of drags it out more, which is the understandable objection.
That I think is the smartest lift.
Right. That they kind of clean that up.
In any description of like the changes, that's always like, well, this is the biggest change. But I think it speaks to the fact that you can remove that entirely from the movie and basically, right. And some people say, well, that character, the Golic character,
sort of interesting concept.
Right. But again, everyone except a handful are so interchangeable anyway. Like, do you really I never realized he vanished because they all look alike to me anyway. So like, I just assumed he was one of the bald dudes that got killed. Like, I didn't know.
He's like, I feel like they do better versions of him later. Like with the David character in the Ridley Scott movies. They
yes.
Of this guy who's like, I kind of worship the alien because it's so beautiful and strange.
Yes.
And it's not for profit motive. I'm just kind of like, hot damn. That thing's crazy.
Right.
And like, it's a fun thing to float. But I think even in the assembly cut where you get his full arc, he's mostly an irritant.
Yeah,
he's not.
It's not really a
crucial.
full arc.
Yes. And there's let's see, there's the sequence where she gets her chest scanned to find that she has an alien queen inside of her.
Fellas, don't you hate it when that happens?
Sucks. But her learning that there's an alien from Bishop, from the remains of Bishop, and her learning that she has an alien inside her are things that the audience has already figured out.
Yes.
Way
and
before
they
this.
draw these reveals out.
Yeah.
Another benefit to theatrical version is just like, I think the audience puts it together very quickly, and beyond that, it helps to make the movie a little shorter because once these two realizations are in place, you're like,
she must die.
Right. Right. You're like, we're prolonging the inevitable.
This is another also an element where it feels like we made a movie out of 10 pieces of 5 movies.
Yes.
Where it's like sometimes this spaceship they crash landed on is so destroyed, she needs to like find the remains of Lance Hendrickson in a garbage pile and like jury rig a way to talk to him.
What's going on, buddy?
And then later in the movie, she goes into the remains of the ship to like scan her body, and it works perfectly. And you're like, wait,
why is there an MRI machine in here?
That still works.
I know. And
right. And that's one of the things where they're like, well, we need, it's like it's necessary for the story, and it's like where you feel the fact that they did not have a script and they're just kind of filming scenes, and then
it'd be funny if they woke Hendrickson up and he was like, "Are we on the wood planet?" And she's like, "No, they fucking cut that."
They cut
like,
that.
God damn,
like 4 drafts
that sounded
ago.
so cool.
Yeah, no, I know.
So they do have a triumph, and I do think it's important that they have their triumph. That they kill the alien, right? That they douse it in steel.
They smelt him,
and then they cover him in water, and he shatters.
Yes,
it's an inventive death.
Yes,
and Charles Dutton gets this big moment of like, do it, he's down there and he's yelling, he's bellowing.
He doesn't want to kill, or he doesn't want Sigourney to die.
Yes.
And he's like, you can't die yet. You go up ahead.
Right.
And then he's like, he just lets the alien kind of kill him.
Yes, he sort of keeps the alien down there so they can dump steel all over it.
And I always wonder, like, if they're just gonna, if the whole thing is, anyway. It's
a fair question, but they do need to kill the alien, I suppose, because if Bishop and the company showed up and the alien was still alive, they would be like, great, we'll take it.
Absolutely.
Right.
I always just wonder, like, why doesn't he let her be the bait?
It's a fair question.
Because it would kind of literally kill like 2 birds with one stone.
He seems, both burdened with so much guilt over whatever he's done, ready to die, and 2, he likes her, I guess. But everything you're saying is a hole I might poke in this airtight screenplay. Griffin.
Yes.
I don't know if you're looking at anything particular up, but the ending of this movie is pretty great.
Yeah, I
have like no beef with the final showdown.
That's what I was looking up. Before we get to that, I think it's what I like about Dutton's performance so much, right?
Yeah, you love Dutton.
And Charles S. Dutton is a man who served time in prison.
Yes.
Right? There is like a verisimilitude to this performance, and is a guy who like discovered theater and acting when he was in prison, and was a man who came out a very different person than he entered in. Right?
Yes, you can read all about Charles Dutton's life and and his conviction of manslaughter in the 60s and all this. Like it's fascinating.
Fascinating life.
Yes.
But this is the one guy who it feels like he needs to spend the rest of his life atoning for what he's done wrong.
Which, do we even know what it is?
He has the one line. This is what I was looking up. She said, "I want to say thanks for what you said at the funeral. My friends would have appreciated it." Right.
Right. Because he sort of gives the
eulogy.
Right. Thank you. Good Lord.
Right.
For Newt and Hicks.
And he says, "Yeah, well, you don't want to know me, lady. I'm a murderer and a rapist of women."
Right.
That's his one comment. Which don't know if that's right.
In the assembly cut, Holt McElhaney tries to assault Ripley.
Yes.
That's not in the theatrical cut, right? Or no, I'm
That
sorry.
is.
It's his sacrifice that's not in the
Yes.
theatrical cut.
Right.
He has this moment midway through the movie where he
Yes.
like distracts the alien.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
but the attempted assault
is, in
is
both.
still in
right.
there.
Yeah,
Yes.
I always forget.
Yeah. But I think there's the difference of like, as we said, these are all the guys who chose to stay, right? Who are like, we belong here. We don't belong anywhere else. And I think for the other guys, it's a little bit more of like, we actually maybe enjoy being in a society that is somewhat lawless, where you are amongst your own kind, right? And Dutton is sort of like, he is the moral one, who is just mostly there as means of like self-flagellation. Is that fair to say? Like, it feels like his worldview is like, I do not deserve to engage
100%. I
with
can never
people
leave here
anymore.
because
Not
then-
that I feel more comfortable than it. And I think his whole fight with Ripley wanting to kill herself is this idea of just like, that's not the way to punish yourself, right? The way to punish yourself is to live and to be a better person. But he's viewing the prism of her wanting to live or not via entirely her own suffering versus the idea of like this loop she's caught in, right? Especially when she knows she has the baby inside of her.
It's a little baby.
Yeah. What's her big line she has? Where is it?
I don't know.
When
I don't know.
sorry, when they're talking, when they first heard about this thing, it was crew expendable. The next time they send Marines, they were expendable too. What makes you think they're going to care about a bunch of lifers who found God at the ass end of space? You really think they're going to let you interfere with their plans for this thing? They think we're crud, and they don't give a fuck about one friend of yours that's died, not one.
Sure.
It's like that's where she's at the end of this, which is just like no human is respected.
Right.
No.
No
which
human is
which
respected.
company is she talking about there exactly? The one in the movie or meta-textually outside the movie?
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
It's just like whatever it takes to get it done. And I think she understands that, like, not by choice, but she has become complicit in the cycle of this thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Um,
So the ending is the Weyland-Yutani Commandos come out with these puffy.
they just look cool.
They look fucking cool.
It's just such a great. I just love them. I love Weyland-Yutani.
They're
I
very
know.
like Mobius.
Isn't that
kind
what
of,
Noah Hawley's show is kind of about or something? Right. Like
That's the hope.
I get it.
Yeah.
Like I get the idea of like what's up with these freaks. It's probably a bad idea because they're probably best as this thing you ladle out.
Unseen,
Right.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just a little bit of.
Yeah.
Right.
And even I love the Prometheus and Covenant. I'm like huge defender of those
Mhm.
movies, but like the more you hear about the company and them, the worse. You don't
Right.
need, you don't really need
A
much
little
of
goes
that.
a long way.
Yes.
But just them showing up in hazmat suits
Yeah.
and weird goggles.
But they're like pillow hazmat suits.
yes.
Yeah.
And they're just like, where's Ripley? Hey. And then Bishop being there and him being like, I'm the real Bishop. I'm
Right.
not a
the
robot.
real bishop that the robot bishop was modeled after.
But I'm here to be a friendly face and just to give her the, and you're like, I mean, the joy of it is you're just like, I don't even know if he's the real Bishop.
Right.
Like, yeah. Like
And
either is possible.
Either is possible.
Both are bad.
When she attacks him, there's this prosthetic of his ear sort of
Yes.
falling off.
Yes.
And it doesn't have the
It
classic
looks
milk
bloody,
blood,
right?
but it also doesn't look
Doesn't
totally
look human. Yes.
Which is perfect.
And it's
'Cause
one of those
it could
things-
just be makeup that's weird,
It could just
or
be a
it could
weird
be
prosthetic.
he's a robot.
Right.
Yes.
And a more advanced robot in the time since she's gone into cryosleep, they don't have milk blood anymore. Now they look more realistic. Now they're more Terminator-y or whatever. But it does speak to that point where it's like, it doesn't fucking matter, you know?
Yeah.
When she's at this point having the conversation with him, it's like, nothing means anything to me anymore. I don't care if you're a robot or you're a human who reminds me of the robot I used to know, which, by the way, doesn't really make sense. How long was she in cryosleep?
She's only been in cryosleep for a little while, right?
Okay.
For this one,
I don't know that they say exactly.
they may not say it.
Yeah.
They
But I
make a big
think-
deal in the second movie how long she was
it's
asleep.
been 80 years
Right.
or whatever.
Right.
Sure.
I
And
think
this
this one is supposed to be faster,
Okay.
but I don't know. I don't know.
I'm just like, how would the guy who made Bishop look like himself? How old would he be now?
I see what you're saying.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, is Bishop a top of the line model in Aliens?
It's a great question.
All-
but of
all
course,
questions.
obviously, the joy of the aliens world is also we don't understand what technology is like.
Right.
People might live 400 years in the fucking
Right. The
alien
outside world
verse.
is
Right.
so unknown.
Especially
to us.
rich people. Like
Right.
you don't know.
You don't know.
The whole joy of aliens is you never know.
Yeah.
Right.
You're always on the fringes of whatever society they're in.
Yeah.
There's always this concept that you sort of get of like there must be rich, fabulous wealth.
Right.
And we're just like all the way over here, right?
Right.
Like we're always
Yeah.
at the edge of it. Ugh. It's my favorite franchise. Matt, I don't know how you feel about aliens.
It's up there.
It's way up there for me.
Even though it's constantly fucked with.
Yes.
Yeah.
And often disappointing. Although I love the Ridley Scott sequels.
Yeah.
Wrigley Scott.
Wrigley Scott.
Yeah. Big leagues Scott. Ben.
Griff,
Ben.
what up?
This episode, once again, brought to you by Mubi.
We love movies.
We love Mubi. They're our favorites. A curated streaming service dedicated to elevating great cinema from around the globe. From iconic directors to emerging auteurs, there is always something new to discover. You know, with Mubi, each and every film is hand-selected, so you can explore the best of cinema streaming anytime, anyway. People suffer from analysis paralysis in our modern world. You go into these stream services, they got thousands of titles, but are any of them good? How do you wade through it? You know?
I mean, what's my vibe?
This
And
is
it's
the
like,
thing.
I don't know.
Mubi just curates it. Nothing's ending up there that isn't interesting,
Right.
okay? And they're limiting. It's quality over quantity. I'm looking at some of the things we got here. Of course, Decision to Leave, very recently covered on the podcast last
Right.
week,
Right?
at the time of this recording, exclusively on Mubi, if you haven't already gotten around to that one. California Split, the great Robert Altman gambling movie with Ellie Gould and George Siegel. You've never seen that movie,
I
right?
have not.
That's a great film. That's a film that my father relates to too much.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. In
And
fact,
I don't
he
want to
said-
ask more questions or any follow-ups as to why.
I'll say this. If we ever do 70s Altman, that's the episode he's doing. That is a committed thing. Melancholia, Monica Mana, a film I've referenced many times on this podcast as, in my opinion, being one of the best films ever made.
Wow.
It's a documentary about a cable car in Nepal.
Of course, yes. I
talk about this all the time.
I recall you talking about
But they have
this.
a program, 5 films by the Sensory Ethnography Lab, which was this famous program that produced Leviathan and Sweetgrass and Monica Mana. It's really good. But hey,
Yeah.
I'm also seeing Lady Vengeance is on here. They got a lot of the parks if you want to catch up on the parks. But there's a specific thing Mubi wants us to shout out because Mubi's also a distributor. As they distributed Decision to Leave, they have a new film, Rotting in the Sun by Sebastian Silva. In theaters September 8th in the US, on Mubi September 15th globally. After encountering Jordan at a gay nudist beach, Sebastian reluctantly agrees to direct Jordan's new project. But when Sebastian goes missing, Jordan dances, sleeps, and snorts his way through Mexico City to get to the bottom of the mystery. That's Jordan Firstman, a comedian,
Sure,
writer,
of course.
actor that we both love. We're big fans of.
Absolutely.
Great dude.
Has a really hilarious Instagram. You might know him
One of the
from
best.
doing character impressions of like sort of just like abstract things and ideas and
He does
very niche people.
Very well. This is a movie that he wrote with Sebastian Silva, the great
Cool,
director who
cool.
did Crystal Fairy, Magical Cactus, Nasty Baby, a lot of good movies. And they wrote this film together, and they're both playing fictionalized versions of themselves. The Daily Beast called it sexy, searing satire. And to coincide with the online release of Rotting in the Sun, they have a special dedicated section for Sebastian Silva with a lot of his films streaming there now. So you know, that's one of the many great things you have to check out on Mubi, but that's one of the things you can only see on Mubi.
So for a limited time, you can try Mubi free for 30 days at mubi.com/blankcheck. That's mubi.com/blankcheck for a month of great cinema for free.
Just watch a Mubi.
She kills herself. She
kills
jumps,
herself.
you know, in the theatrical cut, the alien bursts out of her,
Right.
and she sort of goes, "Ooh," or whatever.
Pushes it back in.
I don't recall the noise, but yes, the
it's just
sentiment
like,
is there.
And then in the assembly cut, she just dies in this more Christ-like kind of just
Pose, yeah.
And the assembly cut has that sort of closing montage. Is that in the original cut?
It's in the other one
which
too,
is quite
yeah.
nice of like
Yes.
just doors closing
This
and her
is-
sign off.
This is what I have on my mic arm here is the thing from the theatrical cut, which is, it's supposed to be a queen chest burster.
Cool. Right, which is what's coming out of her.
Right. So it's not just that she has an alien
Yeah, no,
inside
of course,
her,
that's
but
why
she
the
has
alien
one
doesn't
that's
want to
gonna-
kill her, right?
Yeah.
It's a good ending, if nothing else. I'm not sure people were walking out of the theater thrilled to see that had happened, but it's very effective.
And
Wouldn't you love to go
yes.
back and see how people walked out
That's
of the
what I'm
theater on this
saying.
one?
I truly would. And we're going to do the box office game, and everything else in theaters right now, fun for the whole family by and large. And then it's just like, by the way, fucking Alien 3 if you want to be bummed out and whipped with chains.
And again, that's part of to me, that's part of the appeal is the, you know, like, God bless the sequels that are just like, you know what? Forget it. Like, oh, you like these movies? Guess what? We hate them, and we're done with them.
That's my thing. I will basically never not love this movie. Anytime I am actively rewatching it, I'm like, middle sags more than I remember.
Sure,
it does kind of lose its way.
There's things
but
you can say.
The opening I find so strong in both versions, and the ending is just incredible. And I'm just like the basic attitude of this movie to its position of being the third film in a beloved franchise, and its sort of response to that pressure, I just adore.
And I do think, even despite all the problems he had making it and hating it, and now he wants nothing to do with it and he won't go back and work, like, there is some sort of kernel of Fincheriness that is in this movie, and all that hostility and anger.
There is nothing anonymous about this film,
right?
If this movie was directed by fucking Robert Longo or whoever, right, and like you're like, yeah, he never really did much. What a weird thing. It would be way less interesting.
Yeah,
as like the seeds of Fincher. It is. Yeah. Is so much more interesting.
Right. What's the line about in every seed there is the promise of a flower, they say in this movie.
Wow.
Think about it.
We've covered a lot of first films where you're like, this director kind of has a worldview, but they maybe haven't crystallized how to express it yet, and they don't have command of the language of film enough yet to get the ideas across, right? You see the little glimmers, but this thing is very primordial. And this is almost an opposite example of like, the guy had the full tool set, but was not given the rein to do it.
Or the time or the money. Or
right.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's all in there. And so much of the stuff that all the different guys mushed together in that commentary track, Matt kept on saying is like, we were just really impressed day after day how much this young guy was really fighting to make things the way he wanted.
Right.
You just kept expecting, you've seen this before, these guys roll over, they fold, they give up at some point.
Right, because it's easier.
Right, and even as much as he's just like, I lost this movie, I can't rewatch it. You're like, the whole thing looks like a Fincher movie, the whole thing feels like a Fincher movie. It is not at the level of excellence that he hits later.
Yeah. Sure.
But his fingerprint is on every single aspect of the film.
The control freakery you hear about.
Right.
I'm sure if I sat him down and watched it, one, he would just shoot me in the face.
Yes.
For making him do that.
Yeah.
But two, like the second he sees the rod puppet not looking right, he would just be like, Jesus Christ.
Right.
Because that's his reputation.
Right.
There's, I'll talk about it in the Panic Room episode, but there's like a feature where you can watch most of the movie previs, and that was like the most thoroughly prevised movie at that point in time.
Right.
And there's a clip, one of the behind the scenes features that is them screening the previs for him on like a 10 by 10 like CRT monitor, right? And he's standing like 2 inches away from it, and they're playing the previs in real time, and he is nonstop just going like, that needs to be 2 inches lower, you need to come in 10 degrees that way, this needs to be 5 degrees brighter. Like every single image, he never stops talking over the cuts, over the movements, over everything. And it's like he's saying like close but, none of it's like, great job, that was great. He's not waiting for it to be finished to give his notes. In real time, like a computer, he is processing everything that is like a millimeter incorrect with it.
And I just like that maybe not everything, but so much of what this movie is, I think we've said, it's not perfect. There's problems.
No, not perfect.
But so many of the things that we have praised and like about it, come directly from him. You know what I mean? Like his fingerprints are so much the good stuff in this movie.
Absolutely.
I want to tell you that when he finished the film, he showed it to Joel Schumacher, who he says one of the most gregarious and studio politically astute people.
Savage.
Which makes sense.
Makes sense.
I've met Joel Schumacher, and you certainly always hear, always a real sweetie, nice man. You met him, of course, and you had a bizarre audition experience with him. Again, not criminal, just weirdo. You've told the story many times.
Version of it, which is I asked him a question about interpretation of the scene, and his response was, I find that acting is similar to sex. If you ask people if you're doing it right, you're probably not doing it right.
Right, which is clever. And you say you ask if you're doing it right all the time.
I said I constantly asked during sex if I'm doing it.
Like, okay.
Yeah. So you are not cast in my movie.
But it was one of his worst movies.
It was one of his worst. I auditioned 5 times for that fucking movie.
Is it 12? Is that what it's called?
Yes.
Yeah. He shows Joel Schumacher Alien 3. And this is when Joel Schumacher's a pretty big deal, I would say.
Sure.
Yeah.
And Joel Schumacher's like, first of all, this movie is okay. Like, it's not as bad as you think it is. The
That's
good
nice.
news is you're aiming high. The bad news, of course, is that means you're going to be disappointed.
Right.
You're an overachiever. You're miserable.
Right.
Number two is you put yourself in a position where they have more power than you because you care and they don't.
Right.
I mean, it
So
actually sounds
you
like
can't let this happen
he's
again.
actually diagnosed the whole movie and what happened
100%.
very
Right.
well.
And he basically
yeah.
tells him, like, you just can't do this again. Like, if you want to make a movie, you just cannot be in that position again because you're going to be
think
unhappy.
It already probably haunts Fincher anything he rewatches in his own work where he's like, that isn't what I want it to be because of technical limitations or me just having the wrong view at the moment, right?
Yes. I mean,
what he can't live with is watching it and going like, I know how this should have been done and they wouldn't let me.
I mean,
He'd
also,
rather fail by his own failing.
he's at the point the movie comes out, I think he's about 30 or 29 or 30.
Sure.
And he's probably thinking, like, I'm going to be seen as the fucking 20-something. They gave
Yes.
$50 million
Right.
to make an Alien sequel, and I fucking shat the bed.
The
Like,
guy who screwed up
And
Alien.
Exactly.
Early 90s, there's already this wave of like these music video directors are all flash and substance and they get a movie and they have nothing to say.
Like, I will just be seen as like
Flash
the
and no
mad
substance, rather.
enfant terrible.
Right.
Like, oh, they never should have given the fucking Vogue video director, you know, the keys to the kingdom.
It's not really until like later, until Seven and then Spike Jonze that people are like, okay, I guess good directors can come out of music videos.
Right. Here's a great quote from Paul McGann, who said there were more producers around than actors. It's like
Well.
having a fucking audience for every scene. So, vibes on set were really bad.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else interesting in here? Obviously, he asked to do 6 weeks of reshoots. Fox gave him 8 days.
Jesus.
So they basically, as is classic with reshoots of these kinds of movies, they were like, more scares, please. Can you just shoot some scares? Like,
Yeah.
Get this nastier.
Whereas now it feels like most blockbusters, the reshoots last longer than principal photography.
Right.
And then
like,
there was a whole thing with this movie I know about with the hair, the hair again, because she had grown
They
her
had
hair
to
back.
build
Oh,
this
sure.
like bald cap that was
Right.
complicated.
It was like, well, but it was like if she had to cut her hair again for any reason, they owed her like
right,
40
they
grand.
had to pay her more.
Yeah.
right,
And they
yes.
so instead they paid like 20 grand
right.
to make the world's most advanced makeup bald cap.
And then they needed to use it again, and they were like, "Shit, did we throw that away?" And then they like found it in some
like,
pile.
changes the whole shape of someone's skull
Yeah,
at that
it's fucking
point. If
insane.
you're putting baldness over tucked away hair. Yeah.
Obviously, advertising campaign for this movie is incredible. The bitch is back,
Mhm.
and all that.
Cubed.
Alien Cubed.
Yeah.
This film did get an Oscar nom for visual effects.
Uh-huh, it
Lost
loses
to
to-
Death Become Her,
Yeah.
which has very iconic visual effects. I
Good
would say.
visual effects.
Was seen as more
Was
revolutionary.
nominated
Yeah.
alongside Batman Returns as well.
Okay.
Um,
Schumacher.
It came out on May 22nd, 1992. So
The other great tagline, I'm
Start
sorry,
of summer?
is just this time it's hiding in the most terrifying place of all.
Ripley.
Well, that's the thing. I think
Right.
that going into the movie, you're like prison.
Oh,
And then the answer is her womb.
we didn't even mention like my single favorite part of the movie, which is the opening logo with that music sting.
Oh,
Da,
yeah.
da, 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 da. Like they don't give you the end of the 20.
Right.
It's so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yes.
So good.
I
Not just
believe-
for this movie, but I feel
Yeah.
like also for Fincher. It feels
Yes.
like a like how many Fincher movies could start with that
Right.
sting?
Just
a lot of
immediate
them.
So
unease.
cool.
Yes. And it also
and the opening credits are cool.
yeah, and it's
Infitting
yes.
with
I feel
Alien
like it's
opening
right
credits should
before they
always be
switch
cool.
over to the CGI 20th Century Fox logo.
Yes,
Yes.
it's the painted logo.
It feels
still.
late
last
for the painted logo.
It does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, Elliot
No.
Goldenthal. Like,
Elliot Goldenthal's score for this is great.
Amazing.
Elliot Goldenthal, I'm a huge defender of his 90s scores. They are operatic
Batman
and
scores are
intense. I love
incredible.
his Joel Schumacher Batman
Yeah.
scores. I love his Heat score.
Yeah.
I don't know where he went. I know he's Julie Taymor's husband.
Yeah.
And he's around, I guess. He does
But
like
it's-
opera and stuff.
right,
But
he
he had a real fun run in the 90s.
Yes, where he was becoming sort of Elfman style, an unconventional blockbuster composer, a guy with a weird background who was fitting really well into these large movies and giving them a little more personality. Yeah,
Since
but yeah,
Public Enemies,
Jesus.
he's just done Julie Taymor's movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. He did Our Souls at Night as well.
he has
Yeah.
a good quote on, I think it's on the documentary where he says that Fincher, like when, for the beginning of the movie, like how to design the music, he said, Fincher told him he wanted you, the audience, to feel you were completely fucked within 5 minutes and that there is no hope completely.
Yeah, I mean, mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished.
This film opens a disappointing number 2,
Mhm.
$23 million. Not bad for
Not
an
bad.
R-rated movie in 1992. It opens to 23, but only makes 54, which is pretty poor legs for the time.
Yeah.
But it did make $158 million worldwide,
successful.
which is similar to Aliens.
Yeah.
It just made most of it overseas.
Right.
Yeah.
Did well
And it's-
overseas.
Overseas,
7
I think
years
they truly
later.
had the vibe of like, we could piss against the
Right.
wall.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
back then.
it's 7 years later, so the money's going a little
Little less
inflation.
fun.
Yeah.
But it is certainly seen as a bomb.
Yeah.
What is beating it, Griffin? It's an action sequel holding on to the number one spot with, in my
1992.
opinion, the greatest poster of all time.
It's Lethal Weapon 3?
3.
That's right.
The magic is back again.
The magic is back again.
With is it with
Pesci,
Joe Pesci poking his head out? Yes,
right.
that
and,
is
and
a
the
good
arrow
poster.
pointing down. Yeah.
There's Pesh.
Yeah.
Ben, look at Pesci.
Ben, look at
Look at
Pesh.
Pesci, please. There he
Take
is.
a peek at the Pesh.
That
Little
is a
Pesh.
good poster.
That's great.
Just the idea of like they're just run back the fucking Lethal Weapon 2 poster,
Yeah.
but just
Magic is back again.
get Pesci in
Yeah.
there. And right, yeah, the
did
magic
they
is back
even take a new
again.
picture of
No.
the,
I don't
of
think they did.
Glover? And,
No.
They might not have.
They took the old pictures, they printed them out on cardboard, and they had Pesci show up in studio and stand behind the cardboard stand.
Yeah, the
Magic
Lethal
is back
Weapon
again.
3, I couldn't tell you much about that one.
That's the one I
That's the one where
haven't
the magic is
seen.
back
It's the
again.
one with
Yeah.
the most Pesci.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Right. I've seen 1, 2, and 4. I haven't seen 3.
It is Donner.
Is that the one where they introduced Rene Russo's
They're all
character?
Donner.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so
They're
like-
all
so-
Donner, you're right.
So that's all I could tell you about it is that she
Yeah.
has the relationship with Gibson and like she's what is she, an internal affairs
Sounds right.
agent maybe?
Because she's in 4.
She
as
comes
well.
back and forth. I think they might get married or
They
she's
might.
pregnant.
I think
or
she gets
something?
pregnant.
pregnant maybe. Yeah,
4
she's
is
definitely
about will he settle down.
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
4 is a wild movie.
Well, 4 is just where they're just like, Chris Rock, do 5 minutes. Like, right?
Yeah.
Like, where
Yeah.
they're just like,
Yes.
I don't know, let's just do stupid shit.
They
the
may
whole
have had
time.
less of a script than Alien
I
3
was
did
gonna
when
say,
they started that
4
one.
is a true example of Warner Brothers being like, we fucked up, we have no summer movie.
Like, shit, right. Just get the magic back again.
Right. And they basically like started filming in March and the movie
Right.
came out in July.
Right.
And the trailer ends with like Chris Rock direct to camera being like, Lethal Weapon 4 in theaters. It's me, Mel Gibson. Like just doing bits to camera.
Yeah, man.
Because they just like had shot 4
I remember
days
at
at
the
that
time being like, what ticket, please? What
Yeah,
is
it looks
this?
incredible.
Like,
Yeah.
All right. Lethal Weapon 3, number 1.
Okay.
Alien 3, number 2.
Yeah.
Number 3, there are 3 movies opening this week that are big. This
Wow.
is a treacly romantic drama.
Is it Dying Young?
No.
Am I in the right ballpark?
What would the ballpark be for Dying Young?
No.
No. I mean, that's a Joel Schumacher
Movies
movie.
Julia
where people
Roberts
die young?
movies?
Oh, right,
Um,
because there's a different Joel this summer. Okay.
Yes. It's, I would say it's like arguably the worst film in this guy's career, apart from like some of the shit he made recently ish.
So is it a Rob Reiner?
No, I mean the star. It is
Oh.
the director is a Hollywood journeyman who still works to this day. He's made good movies. He's made bad movies. He's won an Oscar.
Ron Howard?
Ron Howard.
Is it Far and Away?
Far
and Away.
Far and Away.
It's the Tom Cruise movie where I'm just like, you don't need to see it.
Yeah.
Not even if
It's
you're.
the
I don't
one-
think I ever have.
Yeah,
I'm trying to
it
think.
Stinks.
It's Far and Away, his worst movie.
And they're all doing
The
fucking
accent
accents.
The
is
accent.
great.
I should have remembered because I did watch the Siskel and Ebert review, and they're coming up next, and they show like a clip of Tom Cruise with the accent, and I was like, hey, yeah.
It's at the level of when I do an accent without any prep at the opening of this episode.
It is exactly that.
Yeah.
And it's also just one of those movies where you're like, why did this come out in May? Like,
Yeah.
this is like a sort of
just Cruise and
Tony
Kidman.
Oscar
Cruise
film,
and
but it's
Kidman.
got-
Cruise and
it's had
Kidman were
Cruise and Kidman.
Yeah.
had so much
It
juice.
has the stupidest fucking title, Far and Away.
Far and Away.
It's not based on anything. It's just some asshole wrote a fucking script.
That is
Wow.
that is a perfect
Take
example.
that,
Someone
writers.
someone on Reddit was poking this up again, but movies that feel like they were based on books.
You're right, but it's
Where
not.
you're just like, how is this not based on some
just
fucking
some guy's
book?
like, I don't know, what if, Irish
It
immigrants.
should be based on
Yeah,
something.
some
You are right
asshole
about that.
just sat down and typed
Far and
exterior Ireland.
Far and Away.
Now, number 4 at the box office, a film I think Ben
Far
probably
and Away.
enjoys. Probably.
Dennis the Menace?
No, a comedy film
Okay.
starring a recent Oscar winner.
Okay. many films are
sort of a
recent?
fish out of water film.
Fish out of water film.
Mhm.
Where is
1992.
it? Will it spoil it to say what water the fish is in, or
He's in
what the
California.
dry land is?
California. Modern day California.
Is it Encino Man?
Encino.
Great fucking
Masterpiece.
I
Oh,
figured.
Encino
A
Man.
masterpiece.
Man.
They
Perfect
dug up
movie.
a man.
Yeah.
It's Brendan Fraser.
Yeah.
And
Brendan
in
Fraser.
someone's backyard.
Do you remember the sequel tease at the end
Is
of that
this
movie?
where Buried Jeans comes from? You were trying to
Subconsciously,
get
yeah.
an
Subconsciously,
Encino
yes.
Man going? Yeah.
Do you remember the tease at the end of that movie, Ben?
No.
So the way they realize that he's come back to life is they like get home. I think they're looking for wherever the buried ice block was or whatever, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And then they see like his handprints and face print that are muddy on the side of their giant like glass picture windows of their suburban home. And they're like, fuck, he's out, he's escaped, right?
Right.
Yeah.
At the end of the movie, there's a thing where they get back to the home and they think everything's settled or whatever. And then they see a similar print, but it also has boobs.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, Encino woman?
Woman.
What? And I remember watching it and then turning to my dad and on TV, on TBS or whatever, and going like, so did they make a sequel? Are they going to make a sequel? Because I was just so into the idea that her boobs were out. The
Right. You were like,
implication-
the sequel will address this.
Right, so I'm
yes?
like, sequel will start with top nudity?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Encino Man famously in Britain was called California
I
Man.
was just looking at
Wow.
Wikipedia.
Because I think they were
known
like,
as
no
California Man.
No one in Britain knows what fucking Encino is. You can't call a country after like a neighborhood, basically. I know
Look at this
Encino's
poster.
a town on
Great
Tucson.
poster.
It's a great poster.
It's
I
a
Where
have,
the Stone Age
Dude.
meets the Rock
I
Age.
have so many comic books from the 90s because I was a comic book reader as a child. And
This was a classic movie poster
there
in
was an
comic
ad
books.
for
Yes.
Encino Man in every one of
Hundreds,
them.
yes.
Just
Right.
it was like if
Inside
no
cover.
one else, you're coming to see this. Right?
And guess what?
Yeah, you
I
sure
did.
were.
I sure did.
Now, Matt, you said where the Stone Age meets the Rock Age. We
Yes.
should acknowledge this is a classic 3 taglines poster.
Oh, wait a
the
second.
second tagline is a chillin' new comedy in full Neander vision.
Very good.
Okay.
Very
And then
good.
the third tagline is thawing this summer at
Of
a theater
course.
near you.
Absolutely.
I like that they spelled theater Theatre.
I do too.
Classy.
Theater.
Theater.
Classy.
Yeah.
Obviously, Encino Man came up because Brendan Fraser and Ke Huy Quan are both in it.
Yes.
So
That's
it came
right.
up a lot
It came
during
up on
the
the
Oscar
awards
season.
Yep.
circuit.
Mhm.
Brendan Fraser, good in Encino Man.
Great in Encino Man.
Number 5 of the box office, one of the
Pauly
biggest
Shore's best
hits of the spring, now summer. We've covered it on this podcast.
Heard it on this podcast. What genre is the picture?
Thriller.
Dun, dun, dun. Is it Point Break?
No, it's an erotic thriller.
Dun, dun, dun. Is it Basic Instinct?
Basic Instinct.
Dun, dun, dun.
Has made $100 million in 10 weeks.
A real
Wow.
More than I
hit.
make in a month.
Yeah.
Hit.
Yes.
Basic Instinct. We've also
Masterpiece.
got another film I'm sure Ben likes at the
Mm.
time, Beethoven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That dog
Yep.
too big.
It big.
Rodent too grumpy. Dog too big. Rodent too grumpy.
Everyone drooling.
Yeah.
The head of the family is the one with the tail.
Who
That was
slobbers
the,
more, the dog alien or Beethoven?
It's sort of
Close.
50-50.
Very
yeah.
close.
Yeah.
You've also got Disney's Beauty and the Beast, which seems to have been pushed back into theaters many weeks later on 1,000 screens.
Interesting.
You've got Robert Altman's The Player.
A masterpiece.
Absolutely. You've got Ron Shelton's White Man Can't Jump. Pretty good movie.
A pretty fucking fantastic movie.
And you've got a little comedy by the name of Wayne's World.
man.
Which
Ben
is
is
pretty.
eating.
That's just what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah,
Like,
for real.
seriously, you could just be like bouncing between Encino Man and
Yeah.
Beethoven and Wayne's World.
I'm just taking one
What a
hot
great-
VHS tape after another, throwing it to the side.
They're red.
They're
and
smoking. You're just ejecting them like a fucking bullet cartridge.
What week is Wayne's World in?
Wayne's World
I was
is in its
wondering that too.
15th week.
Wow.
Because that did not come out in the
No,
summer.
that was like
No.
a Feb release?
Yes, it's made $113 million, and it's got $7 million more to make. It's not done.
Man.
What a picture.
It is a great film,
It's
Wayne's
a
World.
I think it is
A
truly.
classic.
Like, I think
a
Wayne's World
perfect
2 is funny, stupid bullshit, but I think
Yes.
Wayne's World 1 is, like, great.
I think Wayne's World 2 is a great American film.
Oh, you think Wayne's World 2 is a great
No, I'm
American
sorry.
film?
I'm
Well,
sorry.
yeah.
I think Wayne's World 1
2 is pretty dumb, right?
Yes, 2 is dumb.
Yeah.
But it's fun. It's got fun
funny.
stuff in it.
It's funny.
Yeah.
It's got Charlton Heston. That
Wait,
bit always makes me
Wayne-
laugh.
Wayne Stock.
Wayne's World 1 is yeah. Wayne's World 1 is like profound.
Yeah, I think
Also,
Wayne's World 1 rules.
Like
Yeah.
our friend of the show, Rob Shear, posited a question that has stuck with me, and I think he might be right. You're like, is Wayne's World the only like mainstream studio comedy in basically a 20-year span
Uh-huh.
the 10 years before and after that has no gay bashing in it.
They do, because even Bill and Ted has that moment where you're like, God damn it.
Yep.
There's almost always the one, or there's a moment where a gay character's introduced and they sort of like side-eye the camera or some shit.
I mean, this is not a science. I can't look. Of course. But no, it's common that there are jokes in comedies from the 90s and 80s.
Right.
That
I think starting in the 80s into the late 2000s.
Now, Wayne's World does have, what's his pants always going, I love you, man. But I think that's so funny.
I don't think that's
I know. And it's like you can't say like thank you. You have to say I know or whatever, right? Like I can't say
that's my thing. You watch that movie and you're just waiting for like what's the thing that's aged poorly? And I think basically none of it has.
Yeah.
I literally when I saw
Rob Lowe's in it?
Aged perfectly.
When I saw that movie in the theater, I literally laughed so hard I actually fell out of my chair. Like that cliche, I literally laughed so hard I fell out of my chair.
That's my
at
memory.
the scene with the product placement.
Right. First off,
I fell out of my chair in the theater.
Do you know who's so fucking funny in Wayne's World?
Everybody.
Yes.
Ed O'Neill.
Ed O'Neill.
Ed O'Neill.
He's so funny.
Yeah.
God,
that's the thing.
Stan Mikita's Donuts.
That always got me the most.
I was watching because his monologue.
Such a Chicago joke.
Yes.
Yeah, his monologue,
No, I was watching because we recently lost him, but there was a really good YouTube cut of Alan Arkin's entire uncredited performance in So I Married an Axe Murderer.
Oh, yeah.
Which is basically like 9 minutes, 3 scenes, is a perfect comedic game across 3 beats.
Right.
That is just like a masterclass. And you're like, there's that thing in the fucking Mike Myers movies when he was cooking where he could give Ed O'Neill 4 minutes to just eviscerate.
Right.
And not just eviscerate, but be like, there's an entire world here. This guy could be his whole movie. And instead, we're just getting this little glimpse into this life.
Did you watch the Pentaveret?
I watched the Pentaveret.
I tried to.
And you tapped out on that one?
I think I watched 1 episode. I think I made it to the end of the first
episode. I watched all
episode.
of the Pentaveret because it came out the day after I tested positive for COVID. And I would say the Pentaveret was the second worst thing that happened to me that week.
Okay, good.
In terms of like harm to my body.
Yeah. Who, and then we should be done.
Yeah.
Who has more money? Mike Myers, who made Wayne's World and Austin Powers.
And Shrek.
Yeah.
And
Shrek.
And
Shrek.
Shrek.
Actually, Shrek probably ruins it.
Yeah.
I forgot about Shrek. But I just want to say,
Sure.
or Ed O'Neill, who is on 2 sitcoms that have been syndicated out the
sitcoms.
ass
Yes.
for like 10 seasons apiece.
Yes.
It still might be close.
It's probably Mike Myers because of Shrek. I forgot that Shrek, the paydays are so massive and then the residuals and like.
Right. That was the thing. That was like the one time where they paid out the nose for the voice talent and gave them really fucking good deals.
But Ed O'Neill is just one of those guys where you're like, does that guy live on the moon? Like, he must be so rich.
They also talk about because everyone else was pretty untested Modern
He was
Family.
the top paid performer on Modern Family.
He basically always was. And even when they all negotiated together, are you looking up
Celebrity
the
Net
unreliable?
Worth pegs him at 65.
And these are always
Myers
right.
And always right. And Myers at 200. So Myers, I forgot about Shrek.
Yeah.
You can't really beat Shrek.
I think Shrek's the big thing. And the other difference is that like Mike Myers has like underlying ownership of those characters.
Yeah,
right?
He's got all kinds of stuff going on.
He's an all-star, so to speak.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey now.
He puts the show on, he gets paid.
Might as well be walking on the sun. It's different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My Spotify recently served that one up to
Now
me.
I'm a believer.
And I was like, wait, you think I want to fuck? Like, you know, when Spotify's like, we're just playing, like, you want Walking on the Sun by Smash Mouth?
You're
And
like,
I'm like, what did I do?
Yeah.
What?
Hey, you piece of shit. You want this fucking garbage?
I don't.
Because
like,
our
I'm
computer
innocent.
knows you better than we do, and we're telling you want this shit.
All right. That's it. We're done. We've wasted enough of Matt's time.
Matt,
thank you for
book.
coming here, Matt.
Right here.
Oh, yeah.
On your desk, on our
Yes,
desk.
everyone
here.
can see. Wait, where's the camera so I can point it at it in here?
Hold it up.
That's it.
Here's
Right
what
there.
it said.
Okay.
Hold it up to the mic and flip through the pages. Let's hear what that book sounds like.
Ooh.
Well,
Listen to that.
Yeah.
Ooh.
That's nice.
This is a book about Siskel and Ebert.
Producer's thrilled.
One of my favorite YouTube rabbit holes. When I can't sleep, they're one of my go-tos of just watching random interviews, compilations. They're year end. The best.
I went way down that rabbit hole.
What was sort of your angle in approaching this book?
I wanted to read it, so I wrote it.
That is
because
a great call.
It's a great.
Because I was a huge fan of Siskel and Ebert growing up. That was my ultimate almost more than the movies themselves.
Yeah.
I liked the show first. And that was my gateway to liking movies, really, was I watched the show and then became interested in the movies they were talking about. But at first, it was almost more the show.
They popularized a certain type of film discussion, you know?
Or just film discussion on television,
In general,
period.
yeah.
I mean,
in really any significant sense.
in terms of like a
Right.
critical sense of like, as a means of doing film criticism.
And they have this complicated legacy of people who argue that they kind of like diminish the thing by placing it on TV, reducing everything to the thumbs up, thumbs down. But then you think about the level of like nuanced discourse they were able to fit into very short segments that were not dumbed down. You know, they have to fit 5 reviews in per episode or whatever. And also the amount of films that they not only boosted, but like made the reputations of single-handedly. You know, films like Hoop Dreams and
Dreams
Used by
is a big
You
one.
and all these ones that just like basically
Dark
were,
City.
Yeah, were minted by these guys, either reclaimed by them or sort of.
Dark City was just Ebert, but
That's
that's
just
okay.
Ebert.
But that's okay.
But I mean, I just remember that being one of the late, like him making it number
Yes.
one. You're like,
Yes.
Ebert made that his number one.
Yeah,
Shit,
number
I guess
one.
I should see it.
And he did like a commentary track for
He
it.
sure did.
Siskel
Not a bad
similarly with Bay Pig in the City.
Bay Pig in the City,
His
obviously.
final-
Siskel's final
was
triumph.
Siskel's
Yeah.
final best of movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't Siskel had some great? He had like Crumb one year, right?
Yeah.
He had like one false move. Like he's. We don't talk about Siskel enough
We don't, and that was
because
another
obviously Ebert is such a legend,
Right.
For
Right.
good reason, you know,
right.
And was a
that-
better print
better writer.
critic.
He
right.
was-
He was.
right.
Yes, he was a better wordsmith.
and also he has, which is wonderful, he has his like basically entire archive
Yes.
still lives online. Where if you want to search, you can type in Roger Ebert Alien 3 and you
Right.
can read his
Yes.
review. You can watch.
Siskel stuff is more decentralized.
It's just hard to find. It's just there's just not as much available.
But like I've always considered him just like when I was a teenager, he was like a starter critic for me. Not that he's not a good critic generally, but just like when I watched like La Ventura and then I read his review and the great movies, and I was like, this is helping me process something I can barely
absolutely.
understand.
But
And I'm
just
like
the-
15 years old.
like the perfect personality balance between those two guys. Do you know this, Matt? That when we started the show, and it was originally just a Star Wars thing, right? And Ben was like, "I think you guys have something here. You should come up with a
do
name."
more movie stuff. You need a
Right.
name.
You
that
need a
can,
name
know,
that is more general than the Phantom Podcast, where we can
Right.
go from here. And we were like what? And Ben's top pitch. Do you want to say it, Ben?
Do you even remember it?
I
I
remember,
remember it.
because at one point
Yeah.
our email account was registered under this name.
Oh.
It was Griffel and Simsberg.
Which is especially funny given that it's your first name and my last name. But I do think it rolls off the tongue
Well, it
better.
wouldn't. I don't think David Burt
No,
would
it
have
doesn't.
worked.
I know. You made the right call.
Is it too late to go with it?
No,
though?
Ripple
it's
and
never
Sims
too
Burt.
I
late.
don't think so.
10-year
there's
anniversary. We're
definitely-
going to rebrand.
If we had recordings of those early, there's some moment where I'm like, Griffel and Sim, like I definitely
We've
first-
talked-
We talked it over.
It wasn't an immediate discard.
No,
We had
yeah,
no
it's
better
kinda
ideas.
funny.
It was by default the leading candidate.
Oh,
Yeah.
boy, oh boy.
I don't hate it.
Griffel and
Um,
Simsberg.
But God bless Siskel and Ebert, who
Yeah.
both left us at this point, obviously.
Very excited
Long
to read the
ago.
book.
I'm very excited. Yeah, what is the format of the book? Is it just you reviewing every single review they did?
And you give a thumbs up or thumbs down
it's
on the
18
review.
million pages
That
long.
document that I have on my
Yes.
computer just reprinted. No, it's it kind of it's a little bit of a bio of each one, but then it's largely about the making of the show, how they did it, their relationship, a lot of
Right.
their relationship, some of the stuff about the criticism of them is
Yes.
is
How they're dumbing it down.
they're dumbing
Two
down
thumbs up,
criticism. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Do you get into Roper?
yes, there is
Sorry to
actually the last chapter, the last full chapter is the show after Siskel, and then after Ebert had to depart as well. There's a whole chapter just on, and I interviewed every single,
Michael and
all of the every
Tony.
co-host,
Ignati and
later-
Christy Lemire.
and
yeah,
Ben
everybody.
Lyons and Ben Mankiewicz. They're all
You got
And
Lyons in the
Ignati?
yes,
Didn't Ignati?
Ignati. I
Yeah,
spoke to
yeah.
Ignati. Yes, Christy Lemire. They're all
Did Tony
interviewed.
Scott do like?
Yeah, it was-
yeah.
Tony Scott
He's-
and
I
Michael
spoke
Phillips.
with him and Michael Phillips. Yes.
Yes.
So they're all in there. Yeah. And then the back of the book, the one other thing I would say is I made an appendix called Buried Treasures that Siskel and Ebert loved because the other thing I was a big fan of as a kid was like the Malton Guide, the Ebert guides, and I just wanted to do
me
something
too.
like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
And so, yes, they have movies like Hoop Dreams that they really made.
Yeah.
But because I watched every episode I could find and recorded everything, there was these movies where even me, I'm going, what is this movie that they
Yeah.
gave 2 thumbs up to and sometimes put on a top 10 list and I've never even heard of it? And so I took the 25.
Schindler's List?
Yeah, that one was blew my mind.
What's that?
So I
movie
made
about a list?
So I made like my own, almost like guide
yeah, like
of
capsules,
like the
yes.
25 movies that are not super well known that they
Right.
gave 2 thumbs up to that are really cool and worth checking out.
There's like a 90s Barbara Hershey one. I remember watching an interview of them being like just over the moon about how fucking good it was that I feel like doesn't exist.
Hell yeah.
Shy People, 87.
I've heard of Shy People.
They were just like
Why?
all about shy people.
Hershey and Clayburgh.
Yeah.
The big two.
Martha Plimpton.
Plimpton.
I have,
Big
according
crush.
to my notes here, only Ebert gave it thumbs up.
Interesting.
Fuck.
Siskel thumbs down.
Okay.
On an episode where they also reviewed Switching Channels.
Yup.
And God Created Women. It must be a re-release,
That's
maybe.
I'll say that's a very horny review.
And The House on Carroll
The Roger
Street.
Vadim movie?
Yes.
They're like, check out this fucking horny ass Roger Vadim movie from 30 years
Maybe
ago.
it was re-released, or maybe there's
Yeah.
another
Must
movie.
have.
I don't know.
Be really aggressive.
But yeah,
just
so-
be like, look. By
Sorry.
the way, I've been
Sorry to fact check.
No,
you,
no,
but
no,
I
no,
have
no,
this
no, no.
literally, it's
I think it was more just, I guess she had won Best Actress
145,000
at Cannes that year, and they just talk a lot about how insane that performance is. Final question.
Mhm.
Do you touch on the Good Burger review at all? That is my single favorite Siskel and Ebert clip.
So that's the
don't
one
know.
where
I invoke it once a year.
you have invoked it before.
But it is they start arguing over the quality of the movie,
Right.
where Ebert doesn't even seemingly really like the movie that much.
Sure.
But he takes umbrage with the fact that Siskel says the characters in the movie are dumb.
Right. He's like, they run a burger restaurant. Like, how dumb could they be?
Right, he's like, they fool the bad guy. They solve the plot of the movie. And Siskel says, of course they solve the plot of the movie. They're the hero of the picture. And he goes, but you have to take for granted, within the text of the film, they're smart enough to figure it out. And they get into this whole thing where, like, Siskel's like, why are you taking this so seriously? And he's like, you have to meet the movie on the grounds, and it's like presenting itself to you. The clip becomes an argument for how you perceive movies.
Right. So I don't think that one is in here. I will figure out a way to put it in the next edition.
Please.
But
Yeah.
but
it might be its own chapter.
there is chapters about like how they review movies and how sometimes like the reviews become, as you're saying, become much more about like the art of talking about a movie than they are about any specific movie.
And what you're looking for when you critique a film.
Yeah. Because they had such different approaches to these
Yes.
things.
Well, thank you for being here. It's always
My
a pleasure.
pleasure.
Very
This
excited
has
to read
been
your book.
Very enjoyable.
Very excited to read the book.
So,
Very
I've
excited.
enjoyed
The
all
last
your work.
couple times
You've
there's
also got
been-
other books people can
Yeah,
read.
the Spider-Man
Sure.
book you came on last time.
That's right.
You plugged last time you were on the show.
That's right. Talking about Spider-Man, of all things.
The last couple of times there has been a tie-in fast food menu. We have tried to coordinate me going with you for
We
the trip,
have.
and it hasn't worked. And I appreciate that you
I feel
still
like there's less of
send
them
me
these
the invite.
days.
There is.
There's been a resurgence.
They're back.
There was the Spider-Verse Whopper.
Spider-Verse
Independence Day
Whopper.
version.
And then what was the one before that we were trying to make happen? The Despicable
It
Minions
was like
2
Rise
menu?
of Gru, maybe?
It was the Rise of Gru
The
menu
Rise of
at IHOP.
Gru
At
point,
IHOP.
poison gun.
Yeah.
You're just like, give it to me. And they're like,
Just
you will
pour
die.
it in my mouth.
You will
Yeah.
be killed by this. And you're like,
Yes.
that's fine.
We'll make
We'll
it
have
happen
to
for
go
the
to
next one.
Brazil to try the. Have you seen
I
the
know,
Barbie?
It looks fucking good. The Barbie burger
Barbie
and the Barbie
burger.
shake.
Where they just cooked you a Barbie. Just
Yeah.
they
Pink-
ground her
like-
up.
They put another
Goo.
shrimp
Ooh,
on the
boy.
Barbie.
Jesus. It's only in Brazil.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Yeah.
But
all right.
maybe
Milkshake.
if we ask hard enough,
They'll ship it to us. They'll
Well,
Gold
they'll just-
Belly.
they'll just-
quarantine. Just
They'll bring it
no.
over here.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, there should be a Turtles menu in August. Like that
Yeah.
feels right.
They've
well, they
been
have
doing-
like frozen pizzas.
Yeah, they have their own line. It's not even like,
Yeah,
oh, Tombstone is Ninja
no,
Turtles
no,
branded.
they did it all themselves.
And then have you seen the thing
There's
at the
a Ninja-
AMC theaters?
No.
There's like a special Ninja Turtle slushy,
Oh boy.
icy flavor, but they're also adding a thing where you can like buy green Pop Rocks and like mutinize any beverage,
We should do that.
and it makes it green and glowing.
Mm.
You put it in any
sounds
other soda.
It sounds
Yeah.
delicious.
They just have this poster now at all the AMC theaters that's 3 different radioactive looking beverage cups.
You have to go see Oppenheimer.
You have to go see
at some
Oppenheimer.
point. Yeah.
All right, get out of here. Come on, we're done. Wrap
Get
us
out of here.
up.
Come on, we're done. Wrap us up.
You can check out Matt's book. There'll be a link to the pre-order.
Yes,
in
absolutely.
The episode
Yeah.
description.
Yes.
Posable
do so.
thumbs.
Yeah.
Great title.
Do you have an audiobook? Are you doing the audiobook?
It hasn't been settled yet, but I want to do the audiobook.
Interesting.
Shouldn't I do it?
You should.
Yeah, why not?
Let's
Why
put our
not?
thumb on that scale.
Yeah.
Matt should do the audiobook.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here, Matt.
My pleasure.
Thank you all for listening. We're going to have a fun ride ahead of us with Fincher.
Yeah,
A fun ride into the depths of how bad humanity is.
but all these movies be good.
His main thesis: people are perverts.
I'm literally reading the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo trilogy right now.
Jesus.
That's how pumped I am for this series.
You've been amped. You want to do this one for a while.
Finchy.
We
didn't even make any "We love the Finchman" jokes, but we do love the Finchman.
I was about to say, we have great admiration for the man named Fincher. Yes. Tune in next week for
7.
Seven.
Seven. C7 and
Yes.
no, it's just 7. Title on screen is 7.
7. Thank you to Marie Barty for our social media and helping to produce the show. Thank you to AJ McKee and Alex Barron for our editing, JJ Burtz for our research, Leigh Montgomery and the Great American Novel for our theme song, Joe Bowen and Pat Reynolds for our artwork. You can go to blankcheckpod.com for links to some more real nerdy shit, including our Patreon, where right now we are doing the Brosnan Bond movies.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're actually we just kind of have wrapped up very recently with Ocean's 8.
Okay.
And then tomorrow is our Alien versus Predators episode.
Oh, that's right. Enjoy that.
And then we're going to
tied into this.
Right.
Yes.
And then of course we'll be starting, as you said, the Brosnan.
Starting the Brosnan Bonds. We'll also be doing the Fincher music video episode, as we said, coming next month, I believe.
Correct, October 11th.
And also, good time to plug. We, of course, after 3 years, we take all our Patreon stuff behind the paywall, so you can sign up for a free Patreon membership where you'll be notified every 10 days when an old episode gets made public, including, I think pretty soon, the Alien franchise commentaries will be coming up a little bit later this year.
You are absolutely right. It will begin in October.
Yeah, right around this time.
That's right.
Look at that.
Wow.
Synergy. Tune next week for
another episode of Griffel and Simsworth.
I'm saying it's not too late. That is a good title.
See?